Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Deku had stepped in at Kamino Part 1. If you guys enjoy this what if and want to see Part 2, comment down below and let me know before I start. Please do support for more awesome content and leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also share this video with your friends and check out the description in my playlist. The author of the story, NezutheRatGod from Wattpad. So let's start the video. Izuku and Katsuki stood there in horror at the sight of what they are seeing. All Might, the #1 hero in Japan and in the world, was there in his true form. All Might's arm was hanging limply to his side, obviously broken, and All for One was closing in on him. Izuku started breathing hard and knew what he had to do, but before he could leave, Ida stopped him. "Midoriya, I know that look in your eye and I can't let you leave. Think of the consequences," said Ida while keeping a firm grip on Izuku's shoulder. "I know, Ida, but I have to. He needs my help and I can't just stand here and do nothing," said Izuku, who ripped Ida's arm off and started rocketing towards where All Might was and ignoring his friends yelling for him to come back. "So, All Might, how does it feel to be losing? How does it feel to know that this is all your fault?" said All for One while starting to float towards All Might, fully intent on killing him but not before breaking him more. "I find it quite ironic on who you chose as your successor. But then again, if you knew who he truly was, you'd never have chosen him." "What the hell are you talking about?" said All Might while struggling to stand up and face All for One. "How wouldn't you like to know? But since I want to break you some more, I shall tell you," said All for One, who then spread his arms out. "Why, Izuku is my 𝐬𝗓. All for One was cut off by a streak of green lighting and a fist smashing into his face while hearing 𝗳𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 collapsed buildings. All Might looked wide-eyed at Izuku, who was standing there where All For One just was. "Why, young Midoriya, what the hell are you doing here? You need to leave now," yelled All Might, hoping desperately that his son in everything but BLD would listen to him. "I'm sorry, All Might, but I can't lose you. You were the father I never had, and you promised me you'd live to see me become number one. So please let me help you so you don't make the same mistake as your predecessors did," said Izuku, looking at All Might with a fire in his eyes and determination in his voice. All Might stood there silently before he smiled and slowly stood up. "Very well, young Midoriya, I need your help, and to make sure you don't get in trouble, I give you permission to use your quirk to help me defeat that monster," said All Might while walking to and standing next to Izuku. "Well, I wasn't expecting that, but to believe he has that much strength," thought All For One while standing up. All For One looked at Izuku and All Might and couldn't help but remember back years ago when he was holding a baby that made him willing to give up being the ruler of the underworld so that he can be with him as the baby grew up. "Young Midoriya, I'll be the shield and you be the spear. Strike fast and hard while I take the blows and deal the damage," said All Might, grabbing the few remaining flames of One For All to fight his enemy. "Right?" said Izuku, who powered up One For All to 20% and disappeared in a flash, trying to flank One For All, with All Might charging at him. All Might ran up to All For One and tried to smash his fist into face, which All For One blocked. But before he could counter, Izuku was behind him and smashed his leg into the back of his head. All For One fell to the ground where All Might pressed the advantage. "Texas smash!" yelled All Might, who smashed his fist into All For One's gut, which made him spit out BLD, air cannon ×3, shock absorption ×4, kinetic booster ×3, said All For One, who threw his arms towards All Might to get ready to blow him away. But before he did, Izuku came back up and kicked his arm away, which allowed All Might to throw another smash at him, Detroit Smash. The punch blew All For One back, who lifted his arms again, but he held back the blow because Izuku was there. The blast blew both Izuku and All Might back, with Gran Torino catching All Might and Izuku being caught by Endeavor. "Young Midoriya, American Axe!" yelled All Might, which got Izuku's attention, who nodded and charged right at All Might. All Might raised his hand back and grabbed Izuku's and threw him at All For One, with Izuku doing an axe kick on him, which made All For One raise both his arms up to block. All Might charged and threw another Detroit Smash into his gut, while Izuku spun and kicked him a couple meters away. "Enough of this," said All For One, who used air cannon again and blew Izuku back and charged at All Might. Muscle enhancement ×7, bone spikes. All For One's fist smashed into, which made a bunch of deep holes in his shoulder that made his right arm useless. "Damn it, I can't lift my right arm up," thought All Might, who was blown back but was still standing. 𝗲𝗵𝗏 was about to say something when once again Izuku came and tried to punch him, which 𝗲𝗵𝗏 blocked and countered, which sent Izuku back as well. Oh, how the mighty have fallen, you the symbol of peace, having to rely on a teenager to help you win a battle. How pathetic, All Might, said 𝗲𝗵𝗏 with him spitting out the last words. You're right, I am pathetic, but that doesn't mean I can't stop you, said All Might, standing up and powering up his fist. Let's finish this, 𝗲𝗵𝗏. I couldn't agree more, said 𝗲𝗵𝗏 with his arm exploding with lots of different quirks. Both titans stood apart before they both charged, and their fists collided, with All Might being blown back, not being able to stop 𝗲𝗵𝗏. All Might was struggling to hold back the power behind the punch, but sadly it was too powerful and it destroyed his left arm, with 𝗲𝗵𝗏's metal spikes piercing his chest, just barely missing anything vital. All Might went wide-eyed before he collapsed on the ground, slowly bleeding out, and with 𝗲𝗵𝗏 standing over him getting ready to kill him. Consider this revenge for what you gave Izuku, said 𝗲𝗵𝗏, who lifted his arm and a metal spike was about to impale All Might. Oh my God, All Might has been defeated, there is no hope left for us, we've lost, said the news reporter in the helicopter, telling the whole world that All Might has been defeated. Everyone who was watching could only watch in horror as 𝗲𝗵𝗏 was about to kill All Might. Son, everyone, I'm sorry, thought All Might, who closed his was about to accept death before he heard. Get your hands off him, you monster. Delaware smash, yelled Izuku, who used 50% of One for All and blasted 𝗲𝗵𝗏 away. Izuku was standing in front of All Might holding his broken arm. As long as I'm standing you won't lay a finger on him, 𝗲𝗵𝗏, said Izuku, who was struggling to stand from that last blast which ended up breaking his leg. 𝗲𝗵𝗏 stood up and stared at Izuku. He was struggling to stay conscious because of him losing his breathing mask and being without it for so long. Damn it, I can keep this up for much longer and I still have to kill All Might, but at this rate. I've already lost, thought 𝗲𝗵𝗏, accepting that he lost. But if I'm gonna lose, it's gonna be at Izuku's hands. Now to just try and play the villain. 𝗲𝗵𝗏 made his arm massive again, but this time put even more quirks into it. Oh, and how do you think you can stop me, Midoriya? I've defeated your MC, or so what could some teenager who can't control his quirk hope to do? As long as there is a drop of blood in my body or a single breath of air in my lungs, and even if my body and spirit are broken, I will continue to stand and I will beat you 𝗲𝗵𝗏, said Izuku, who powered up his right arm and got ready to defeat 𝗲𝗵𝗏. All Might laid there wide-eyed at what Izuku said and forced his body up. Young Midoriya, if you're gonna beat him you'll need this, said All Might, holding his right hand up which had a massive ball of power in it. Izuku looked at All Might and nodded and reached out and took it the power, and he felt his entire body screaming with power. I've had enough, it's time for you to die, screamed 𝗲𝗵𝗏, who charged at Izuku, who also raised his fist and brought it up and blocked 𝗲𝗵𝗏's strike. It hurts, all this power and trying to hold 𝗲𝗵𝗏 back, it hurts so much, but, thought Izuku, who started remembering everyone in his life that he cared for. Izuku dug his feet into the ground and transferred the power to his left arm while sacrificing his right. Izuku's fist smashed into 𝗲𝗵𝗏's face, which simply moved his head. As that the best you can do, you're even weaker than the others, screamed 𝗲𝗵𝗏, who powered up his left arm to strike Izuku. That's because he didn't put his back into it, said All Might. Izuku's left arm powered down and he transferred all of his power into his right arm and sent it towards 𝗲𝗵𝗏's face. 𝗲𝗵𝗏 had one last thought before Izuku's fist collided with his face. I'm proud of you, son. Prove me wrong and that real heroes can exist. Yoichi, you'd be so proud of your nephew if you were here. He looks like one of those heroes from your comic books. Izuku's fist collided with 𝗲𝗵𝗏's face and he screamed, United States of 𝐒𝐩𝐢𝐵. The smash sent 𝗲𝗵𝗏 straight into the ground, where it created a massive crater, and the force of it was so powerful it shook all of Japan. Everyone in Japan and the world was silent and waiting for the massive dust cloud to disappear, and after a little while it did, and what they saw was a new symbol. Izuku was standing over 𝗲𝗵𝗏's unconscious body with his right arm raised into the air to symbolize that he is still standing and that he won. He did it. The boy, who I am told is named Izuku Midoriya, has defeated the villain that beat All Might, said the news reporter while cheering, which everyone in the world was cheering as well. All Might was leaning against Gran Torino and watching Izuku and couldn't help but say, we have a new symbol. Not a symbol of peace but a symbol of hope, said All Might, which made Gran Torino smile and nod. Gran Torino turned where he heard noise and saw Kamui Wood and Endeavor coming down, with Woods about to head over to Izuku before he was stopped by Edgeshot. Don't let him. He's telling the world it's safe because he is here now. All Might gestured to Gran Torino that he wanted to go to Izuku, so he helped him there. Young Midoriya, I'm very proud of you, said All Might, smiling at Izuku as him and Gran Torino walked closer to him. Izuku turned and looked at All Might and smiled before he turned to the camera crew that was on the ground and pointed at them. Shigaraki and League of Villains, you're next, said Izuku, looking at the camera with a fire in his eyes. Soon the paramedics arrived and started to help the injured and bringing them to hospitals, with Izuku and All Might going to one with a massive section for injured heroes. As they were heading there, the world was exploding with questions on who that boy and if he was possibly related to All Might. Lots of comments were popping up everywhere and someone ended up leaking a video of Izuku beating the hero killer. After that came up, even more questions came up on this new hero named Deku. But out of all the comments, one stood out and started to grow and spread, and it simply said, "DU, the symbol of hope." It's been 2 days since the Battle of Kamino Ward and All Might's retirement. Ever since then, people have been panicking that villains will overrun cities. But some people have been saying the hero of Kamino Ward, Deku, is the new symbol and will take All Might's place. Tens of thousands of people have been demanding that he be made a hero so he can protect them from the League. Back at UA, they were in a very difficult situation on what best to do. On one hand, they needed to punish Izuku for fighting since he wasn't supposed to, but then they found out All Might gave him permission, which made it even more difficult. That isn't the only thing. The public outcry that would hit them would be massive for punishing a student for what he did. On the other hand, they need to thank him for what he did, because if it wasn't for him, All for One would have gotten away. All Might admitted that he would have lost if it wasn't for Midoriya intervening. This is a really difficult situation, said Midnight, rubbing her temples. Everyone just nodded in agreement, because no matter what they did, they would either get hit with massive hate and crack the already unstable foundation of hero society, or not punish him and look like hypocrites for not punishing a student regardless of him getting permission. Aizawa sat there in silence and deep in thought, but then got idea. What if we were to punish him but make it light, like being required to do extra work for a month or something like that? Said Aizawa, making everyone think. It could work, for not only are we punishing him but we are making it light enough that the public won't be mad, but now the only situation is, do we praise him for what he did or not? Nezu then turned to the detective Tsukachi. You were sent here to represent the police, what would you say to that? Said Nezu. Tsukachi rubbed his chin in thought. Technically he didn't do anything wrong because he was given permission, so legally he didn't do anything. But for UA, he broke rules, so that's up to you, but the government doesn't have a say in how to punish him. Said Tsukachi, looking at everyone, getting them nodding. I mean, hell, from what I heard, the Hero Association is under a lot of heat and is planning to offer him to take the hero license exam, and all of the top 10 supported this, including Endeavor. For he was the one who brought it up to them. This shocked everyone in the room, that Endeavor would be the first person supporting Izuku go and become a professional hero. And Endeavor isn't as much of a butt in this FIC and apologized to his family, and they are slowly forgiving him, and they all live back home including Ray, but he gives them distance so not to hurt them. I mean, after everything that happened, it wouldn't surprise me that B would support him. I mean, look at All Might. Not even he could beat him, and he needed Midoriya's help, so I think it's understandable, said Aizawa, making everyone one nod. Well, in that case I have come to a decision, said Nezu, with all eyes on him now. We will punish him, but like you said, Aizawa, it will only be extra work, and he will get a lecture for what he did was wrong, but in the end it was the right thing. Everyone nodded their heads in agreement before the meeting continued, with Tsukachi pulling out an envelope on the League. All Might was laying in his medical room watching the news and listening to what they had to say. The other day he woke up after surgery and asked how everyone was, and luckily very few hero and civilian casualties. He then asked how Midoriya was doing, and Recovery Girl pulled the curtains to show him laying in another bed. covered in bandages. All Might was told he was put in a medical coma to help him heal his bones and should be waking up any time from tomorrow to 3 days from now. All Might was shaken out of his thoughts when he heard groaning and looked over and saw Izuku was waking up. 𝗬𝗓𝗄𝐵, said Izuku, slowly opening his eyes and looking around confused before he realized he was at the hospital. Young Midoriya, are you alright? How are you feeling? Does anything hurt? Said All Might in a worried fatherly tone. I'm fine, All Might, I promise, just really sore right now, said Izuku, rolling his shoulder and hissing in pain from it. Young Midoriya, I'm sorry. If I was stronger then you wouldn't have had to fight that monster, said All Might, looking down in shame. For that, young Midoriya, I'm truly sorry. After he said that, he bowed his head in shame and guilt. It's alright, All Might, it wasn't your fault, and if you blame yourself then I'm just as responsible, said Izuku, smiling at his father figure. All Might smiled, then remembered something that both embarrassed him and made him very happy. Young Midoriya, is it true what you said over there and that you view me like a father? Asked All Might, a little embarrassed. When All Might said that, Izuku's face exploded in red from embarrassment and then nervously scratched the back of his head. Yeah, I meant it. You were the father figure I never had since my dad stopped showing up long before my 4th birthday. He said that work was making him really busy, but he tried his best to call me and Mom once a week, but sadly I couldn't see him as a father after a while and slowly started forgetting him, and about 5 years ago he just vanished, no call, no nothing, just gone. Then one day some man in a nice suit shows up and gives my mom more than enough money for us to live off of. Apparently before my dad disappeared he left enough money for me and Mom to live off of and for her to never have to work or worry about money, said Izuku, making All Might nod his head in sadness. But then I started watching your videos, and every time I was down I'd watch videos of you, and without me knowing I saw you as a father figure, and then I met you and I really did see you as one. After Izuku said that, there was an awkward silence before All Might broke it. Well, I guess I can say the same sense. I never had kids cause I was too worried about them getting caught in hero work. But then I met you and I started to see you as the son I never had, said All Might with a smile. Now both of them sat there for a little before Izuku spoke. All Might? Asked Izuku nervously. What is it, young Midoriya? Said All curiously. Would it be alright if I called you Dad? Said Izuku, very embarrassed as he looked away. All Might sat there shocked, for he has fought monster-like villains, and hundreds of other types of villains, seen global catastrophe, as well as some of the worst things humanly possible, but that right there being called a dad hit him harder than anything All for One could ever throw. All Might couldn't help but smile, and if wasn't so injured would have walked over and hugged Izuku. Yes, young Midoriya, you can call me Dad. Izuku's eyes lit up like Christmas trees and his smile was so bright and warm All Might was worried the sprinkler system might kick on. Thank you, Dad, said Izuku, smiling. Before the two could continue their conversation, a knock on the door was heard and in walked Recover Girl and Principal Nezu along with Aizawa. I see you're awake, that's good because these two want to talk with you, Midoriya, said Recover Girl with a frown before she walked over and started checking his wounds. Why, hello Midoriya, how are you feeling? Asked Nezu as he climbed into a nearby chair and sat down. Oh, I'm doing okay, Principal Nezu, said Izuku with a small smile. That's good to hear, but I'm sure you might have an idea on why we are here, said Nezu with his voice becoming a little more serious. I have an idea, Principal, and I don't regret my decision at all, and I'd do it in a heartbeat if needed, said Izuku, looking Nezu in the eyes. Nezu only smiled. Well, that's good, but don't worry, you won't be getting expelled, but you still will be getting punished, said Nezu, shocking Izuku. So, what's my punishment then? Asked Izuku, a little worried still. For the next month following, when you come back to school, you will be required to do extra school work and be giving a strong lecture from Aizawa, said Nezu, shocking both Izuku and All Might. I understand, Principal, and thank you for not getting rid of me, said Izuku, who then bowed slightly due to his injuries. Aizawa then walked over to Izuku and punched him in the shoulder. That made Izuku flinch and rub his shoulder. You're lucky you're getting off easy, because if we wanted we could have expelled you, but we all agreed that would do more bad than good, said Aizawa, glaring at Izuku. Izuku looked down in shame before Aizawa pulled him in a one-armed hug. Don't do anything that's stupid again, you understand me, problem child, said Aizawa, still holding Izuku in the hug. Izuku looked shocked but slowly brought up his left arm and hugged back. "I'll try my best, sensei," said Izuku with a small smile on his face as they parted. They were once again interrupted when the door was slammed open and all of 1A was standing there. Midoriya/Izuku/Deku/Deku yelled all of 1A as they ran up to him and started asking questions if he was okay. "Midoriya, are you okay? How do you feel?" "Yeah, Midoriya, how are you feeling? Does it still hurt, Midori?" "Deku-kun, are you okay? Do you fight me so I can prove I am stronger than you?" "Izuku, are you okay? Do you need some juice?" As all of 1A was bombarding him with questions, Izuku was getting overwhelmed and Aizawa was getting annoyed. "Enough, this is a demon hospital, not a rave party, so shut up or leave or I'll drag you out," yelled Recovery Girl, very annoyed at how they are acting. All of Class 1A immediately shut up and stayed quiet after that. After that the class stayed for a while before Aizawa dragged them back to class, all except one certain brunette who asked if she could stay a little longer. "So, Deku-kun, how are you feeling?" asked Uraraka, sitting in the chair next to Izuku. Izuku looked at Uraraka and smiled. "I'm okay, Uraraka, just sore, but I should up and at it in a couple days," said Izuku, smiling. "Oh right, Midoriya, I forgot I had something to tell you," said Nezuth, getting his and Uraraka's attention. "UA is turning into a boarding school, so you will have to get permission from your mom to move in." Izuku looked a little surprised but nodded his head. Before anyone could say anything, there was a knock at the door and two men in suits walked in and stood at either side of it, and in walked the Prime Minister of Japan. The Prime Minister was an old man in his mid-60s with graying hair and stood about 5 feet 11 inches and was pretty lanky. His most noticeable feature was the pair of long green horns on his forehead. "Why hello, are you Izuku, Midoriya?" asked the minister, which Izuku immediately shook his head yes at, for he didn't trust his voice. "Splendid, well, it's such a good thing to meet the hero of Kamino Ward and possibly all of Japan," said the minister, smiling. "And for what you did I must thank you and All Might, for if it wasn't for you two, who knows what could have happened." "Oh no, Mr. Prime Minister, I was only doing my job," said Izuku while stuttering heavily. "Ha, nonsense, my boy, if it wasn't for you two, we'd probably be getting taken over by the man. So because of that you have my thanks," said the minister as he have a slight bow. "Oh, please, Mr. Minister, don't bow, I don't deserve that from a man of your status," said Izuku, waving his arms around. Call me Cho, but anyways, I'm not only here to thank you but I'm also here to give you this," said the minister as he reached into his pocket and pulled out a letter. "This letter right here gives you your information you need to take the Pro Hero exam so you can get your license." "But what about my provisional license?" asked Izuku, confused. "My boy, Japan just lost its #1 hero and panic is slowly flowing through the streets and it won't be long till villains strike," said the minister. "As much of a capable hero endeavor is he is no All Might and won't be able to fill his shoes. Then you show up and show the world what you're capable of. Listen, Midoriya, we need a new symbol, and from what some people are calling you, we need a symbol of hope. So will you be that symbol we so desperately need?" Izuku sat there shocked and deep in thought. This is my chance to become a hero was right in front of me, but I'm worried, what if I fail? What if I mess it all up? These thoughts kept swimming in his head, drawing him deeper and deeper into the abyss. Before his thoughts could continue, he felt two pairs of hands and he saw a woman wearing a black hero suit and with a white cape. She had black hair and silver eyes and a beauty mark under her lip. The other one was a massive man that was bald and had a pair of goggles on his head. He was wearing a black leather jacket and some black pants. "Go and take the step 9th, it's your time. The world needs a hero," said both people before they disappeared. Izuku stayed silent for another minute, then he looked the minister right in the eye with a raging inferno in his eyes. "I'll do it, minister, I shall become the symbol of hope for the world," said Izuku with so much determination in his voice it moved everyone in the room. All Might sat there and couldn't help but smile at what he was seeing. "Son, you're a true hero and I shall help you every step of the way," thought All Might. It was the next day and both Izuku and All Might were let out of the hospital. Both of them left the hospital and got in the car. Nezuth sent them to pick them up to bring them to Izuku's house. "I hope my mom agrees to let me join the dorms, I mean Dad," said Izuku, looking embarrassed. All Might looked at Izuku and smiled before he reached over and ruffled his hair. Don't worry young Midoriya, I'm sure she will agree, said All Might. Izuku looked at All Might and smiled. I hope she does. I don't know what we'd do if she said no. Small time skip. All Might and Izuku pulled up to Izuku's home and started to walk up the stairs. After a couple of flights of stairs they arrived to his door and knocked on it. The door opened up and they saw 𝐒𝐭𝐚𝐲, who is Izuku my baby boy, yelled 𝐒𝐭𝐚𝐲, who swung the door open and pulled him into a bone-crushing hug. Oh my god Izuku, when I saw you on the news I was so scared, and then you went and fought that villain and then dash, she kept yelling while holding Izuku in a hug. Can't be breath, gasped Izuku, trying to get air since his mom is currently hugging him to death. 𝐭𝐴𝐽 noticed that she was basically choking her son to death with the hug let go. Oh Izuku, I was so scared after everything I saw on TV, then I get a call from the hospital telling me how bad your injuries are and dash. 𝐭𝐴𝐽 was then cut off by Izuku. Mom, like I said, I'm fine, just a couple of injuries, but come on, we should head inside so we can talk, said Izuku as all of them then went inside with All Might and Izuku sitting on one couch and 𝐭𝐴𝐽 sitting on a chair across from them. They all sat there with an awkward silence as no one knew what to say at the moment. So, Izuku, what was it you wanted to talk to me about? Asked 𝐭𝐴𝐽 while watching both him and All Might looked a little worried. Ms. Midoriya UA is opening campuses on its grounds and we need parents' permission for the kids to live there. We were hoping you'd give Izuku permission, said All Might. With that another silence came in the room and the tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. No, said 𝐭𝐴𝐽, making All Might and Izuku look shocked. I'm sorry, but no, ever since he joined UA he's been getting hurt and coming home with scars, and then what happened at Kamino Ward. I'm sorry, but I can't let Izuku go to UA anymore and keep getting hurt. But said Izuku, but was cut off by 𝐭𝐴𝐽. No, but Izuku, my word is final, and I'm sorry, I know that was your dream school, but I can't in good conscience keep letting you go there, especially after everything that's happened, said 𝐭𝐴𝐽, giving Izuku a look that left no room for argument. Ms. Midoriya, I know you're worried, but dash. All Might was then also cut off by 𝐭𝐴𝐽. Do what? Protect him. Look what's happened since he came to UA. It has been attacked multiple times and Izuku keeps getting hurt. I can't keep dealing with this. I'm his mother and no means no, yelled 𝐭𝐴𝐽, standing up and glaring at All Might. He's all I have left and I can't lose him. Izuku could understand where his mom was coming from, but he couldn't just keep letting things happen. Mom, I finally have friends and UA is a great school. Please let me go. I need to go so I can be a hero, said Izuku, looking at his mother's eyes. 𝐭𝐴𝐽 sadly looked down. I'm sorry Izuku, but no, I know you want to be a hero, but I can't keep letting you do this. We can try and find you another school and you can be something else. 𝐭𝐴𝐽 was cut off when Izuku slammed his hands on the table and stood up. And what be safe and cast my dream away. It's just like 11 years ago when I asked you if I can be a hero and you just apologized, yelled Izuku, making 𝐭𝐴𝐽's eyes go wide. I want to be a hero, so please let me be one. 𝐭𝐴𝐽 just looked down and shook her head no. Izuku saw this and stormed off to his room, slamming the door and almost breaking it. All Might was about to say something, but then Izuku's door was opened and he walked in holding a letter. Mom, look at this. This was a letter I was giving from a boy I saved from the forest during my training with the PP cats, said Izuku, putting the letter down and letting 𝐭𝐴𝐽 read it. Years started to come out of her eyes as she read it. Mom, Nezu told me that there were thousands of other letters at UA, all for me after I saved them at the Kamino Ward. I need to do this. I saved so many people, and now that All Might is no longer a hero, I need to step up. I can be 1 inch. 𝐭𝐴𝐽 looked like she wanted to say something but kept her head down. All Might, seeing this, pulled out the letter that the Prime Minister gave Izuku and handed it to 𝐭𝐴𝐽. Ms. Midoriya read this as well, said All Might. 𝐭𝐴𝐽 opened the letter and read it and saw that it was so that Izuku can take the hero exam and get his full hero license. She was left speechless at seeing this and didn't know what to say. Ms. Midoriya, I know you're scared for your son, but me and all of UA promise you we will do everything in our power to help him. Me and the staff plus a couple of pro heroes have already offered to help train him to become the symbol of hope that people are calling him, said All Might, who then got in the ground in the kneeling position and turned into his buff form and put his head against the ground. Ms. Midoriya, I promise you till my very last breath I shall protect young Midoriya no matter what, even if it costs me my life. 𝐒𝐭 looked at All Might wide-eyed that he was bowing and looked down trying to decide what to do. All right, but please promise me he'll be safe and you will protect him, said 𝗏𝐭. I will till my dying breath, said All Might, who then deflated to his normal form. Well, Izuku, you better get packing so you can go to the campuses, said 𝗏𝐭 looking sad. Izuku smiled and ran over and hugged 𝗏𝐭 before he ran off to his room to start packing. All of Class 1A was standing in front of the dorms looking at it with smiles. As they were standing there and talking, the last student showed up, being Izuku. As Izuku got out of his mom's car and headed to the dorms, he saw them and couldn't help but smile before he was bombarded with the whole class. Hey Midoriya bro, how is it going? Said Kirishima, walking up to Izuku and patting him on the back. Oh, it's going good, Kirishima, said Izuku with a small smile. Midoriya, it is good to see you and that you are in proper health, but what you did was still bad, said Ida while doing hand chops, while Izuku nervously laughed and scratched the back of his head. As the most of the class was talking to him, a certain brunette couldn't help but smile. She then started to walk over to Izuku. Hey Dohun, are you feeling better now? Asked Uraraka, smiling and having a faint blush appearing on her cheeks. Oh yeah, I'm feeling much better and thank you for asking, Uraraka-san, said Izuku with a small blush on his face. Mina, seeing this, got an idea and decided to mess with them. Oh Midori-kun, it's so good to see you, said Mina as she hugged Izuku and put his arm in between the valley of her melons. Izuku, feeling this, started get extremely flustered and start blushing. Uraraka, seeing this, couldn't help but feel really jealous and started to slightly glare at Mina. As all of this was happening, one student in the back couldn't help but glare at Izuku. Stupid If Deku, said Katsuki as he walked away with his hands in his pockets. Alright everyone, that's enough now, come on, we need to get this tour over with so I can take my nap, said Aizawa, showing up with his usual frown. Mr. Aizawa, before we begin the tour, are we allowed to use the other training fields to train? Asked Tsuyu while bringing her finger to her chin. Very logical question, and yes, while here all of you will be allowed to use all UA training grounds as long as you inform the staff first, said Aizawa. Now all of you follow me, I want to take my nap before the rat sends has me do more stuff. Call me that again and your paycheck won't be the only thing you have to worry about, Aizawa, said Nezu over the intercoms. Aizawa just grunted and led his class inside the dorms. This right here is your common rooms where you have a kitchen and living room area for all of you to do whatever it is teenagers do. The rest of the first floor has bathrooms, laundry rooms, and a small gym if you want to do a light workout. Also, the bathrooms are separated by gender, and if I find any of you trying to sneak into the other, I'll give Bakugo permission to launch you into the stratosphere, said Aizawa while glaring at Mineta and Katsuki, having a sickening grin form on his face. The second and third floor is where all of you will be living, and in each room has your own toilet and bathtub if you don't want to use the downstairs one. Across from the dorms is the 1A training grounds where we had it built so you can be a little more reckless when training your quirks. Now classes start Monday, so you have 4 days to get used to this, and if you need help, contact the staff. Anyways, I'm leaving, so go and set up your rooms. With that, Aizawa turned around and left the dorms and let the students do whatever they wanted. Alright everyone, we should all go and set up our rooms, and then we shall all meet down here and set up a proper schedule, yelled Ida while hand chopping with everyone already leaving and heading their rooms to set them up. 3 hours later, most of Class 1A was in the common room watching TV or talking. Momo was on the phone ordering pizzas for the whole class since the fridge hasn't been stocked yet. Hey everyone, let's go and show off each other's rooms, and all rooms are canon except Izuku's. Alright Midori, your room is all that's left, said Mina as she opened the door to Izuku's room. In one side of the room was a simple bed big enough to fit 2 people if they were cuddling. It had simple black sheets. On the other side of the room had his desk with his school work, books, and journals. He also had a couple action figures of All Might and other heroes. On his walls he had posters of All Might and other heroes. Wow Midori, you're a big hero fan, said Mina smiling. I'm just really inspired by them, said Izuku smiling. As they were walking around the room, Ochako noticed a photo on the shelf right next to his bed. It was a picture of him when he was around 3 or 4 and had an appealing woman with long green hair who she assumed was his mom. Right next to her was a man with white, unkempt hair that was as messy as Izuku's. He had green eyes and some light freckles on his face. "Hey Deku-kun, is this your dad?" asked Ochako, pointing to the photo. Yeah, that's my dad. It's one of the few photos I have of him. Even though I can't view him as one since he left when I was young, I still keep it so I don't forget that he was my real father even though I don't see him as 1 inch," said Izuku with a sad look on his face. "Oh, I'm sorry I asked Deku-kun," said Ochako, now feeling bad. "No, it's okay 𝗬𝗏𝗏, you didn't know," said Izuku, smiling. After that they all left and voted on whose room was the best, with it being Sato's since he made sweets. The night continued and everyone was goofing around and eating pizza. Soon the night continued and they were interrupted when the door opened and Nezu and All Might walked in. "I'm sorry to interrupt your fun everyone, but I need Midoriya for a important meeting," said Nezu with his usual smile. Izuku saw the look in All Might's eye and nodded and stood up and started to walk over to them. Principal Nezu, is Deku-kun in trouble?" asked 𝗬𝗏𝗏, worried. "No 𝗬𝗏𝗏, don't worry, he's not in trouble, we just need him for a meeting because of the Kamino ward incident," said Nezu, which now got everyone's attention. But before they could ask anything else, the 3 left and were heading for Nezu's office. After about a 15-minute walk they arrived at his office. They all walked in and Izuku noticed that there were 2 people already in there. One being Gran Torino and the other was a tall lanky man with green hair that had some yellow in it. He was also wearing a nice suit and had glasses on. The man turned and glared at Izuku and followed him as he sat down in the seat in front of him. "So this is the boy that defeated All for One," said the man, continuing to glare at Izuku. "All Might, you should have chosen Mirio, he would have been a much better choice and be way ahead of this boy." When he said that, Izuku noticed everyone in the room glare at him, and he could feel One for All seeming to be angry at him as well. "Knight, I already told you this, I chose him as a successor because I saw something in him. Something that could surpass me and bring the world to a era," said All Might, still glaring at Night Eye. "Yes, even so my choice would have suited One for All much better. I chose a protege to fit your image and continue the symbol of peace to a new era," said Night Eye, glaring at All Might, and then turned to Izuku. "But instead you chose some boy who can barely control it and only helped you out of sheer luck. I'd watch your tone, Night Eye. If it wasn't for Midoriya, All Might would be dead and All for One would have escaped," said Gran Torino, glaring more harshly at him. "And if Mirio was chosen, the league would be destroyed right now, but instead we chose him, and look where we are now," said Night Eye. "For the last time, Night, I won't change my mind, the world needs a new symbol, not another All Might," said All Might while trying to rein in his anger. Now we aren't here for this petty argument, All Might has already made his decision and now we have to act to that," said Nezu, trying to calm them down. "It could be changed if the boy would give Mirio One for All. Then the league could be taken out in weeks and we could have a stronger symbol of peace protecting us," said Night Eye, who then glared more harshly at Izuku. "Boy, how much control do you have?" "I'm about 20% and if I really push it I could reach 30% for 10 minutes, said Izuku. "See what I mean? If we had the one I hand-picked he'd already have about 60% controlled already," said Night Eye, which made Izuku look down in shame. They were all interrupted when All Might slammed his fist on the table, cracking it since he entered his muscle form. "That is enough, Night Eye, I won't let you here and degrade young Midoriya," said All Might. "Night Eye, that is enough, either stop letting your personal feelings get in the way or leave now," said Nezu, having enough of Night Eye's attitude. Night Eye looked around and stood up and walked to the door before he stopped and gave Izuku one last glare. "I'll be waiting for your proper decision, boy, when you give someone more capable of wielding that power," said Night Eye as he closed the door shut with a lot of force. He wasn't a minute too soon because All Might stood up and hurled a coaster through the door where Night Eye was just standing. "Well, there goes one person who might be able to help us train Izuku with One for All faster," said Gran Torino, looking down with a scowl at how Night Eye spent the whole time degrading Izuku. Izuku sat there and thought about everything Night Eye said. Maybe he's right and I should give One for All so someone better, maybe I'm not good enough to be a hero, thought Izuku, who was then knocked out of his thoughts when All Might put his arm around his shoulder. Don't listen to him, young Midoriya. I chose you because I saw something great in you and I knew that you could become an even better symbol or hero than I ever was," said All Might, giving Izuku a light hug. "Thank you, All Might, I needed that," said Izuku, who leaned into the hug. "Maybe this is what it's like to be hugged by a dad." "I'm sorry for that, Midoriya. If I knew that's how he would have acted, I wouldn't have invited him here," said Nezu apologetically. "It's alright, Principal Nezu, you didn't know," said Izuku. Nezu looked at Izuku and smiled. "Very well, Midoriya, but anyways, let's get to the meeting," said Nezu, drawing their attention. "Me, All Might, and Gran Torino have all agreed that you will need to be trained even harder and pushed harder. Because of that, you will be exempted from some classes so that they can train you along with Aizawa and some other high-ranking pros." Izuku looked at Nezu and nodded his head. "Don't expect me or anyone else to go easy on you, brat. Because of what you did in Kamino Ward, you're gonna have to push yourself harder than ever," said Gran Torino with a smile forming on his face. Izuku looked up at him and smiled back. "I promise not to let you or the others down," said Izuku. "Very well. Starting tomorrow you will train with Gran Torino and All Might along with a special guest who we had to con to get her to show up and train you," said Nezu, which got Izuku's interest. Principal Nezu, who is she?" asked Izuku, which just made Nezu smile even wider. "Why, it's the now number 6 ranking hero in Japan, Miruko," said Nezu with an insane grin and laughter coming from him. 3 days have passed since then, and every day at 5 a.m. Izuku leaves and doesn't come back till around 9 p.m. Every time he came back he was covered in bruises and bandages. It worried his classmates, but they could never ask him what's going on since he'd always disappear to his room. It was now Sunday night and the guys were watching TV and relaxing. The girls were all sitting on bean bags talking and gossiping about stuff. As they were all doing their own things, the front door was opened and Izuku came limping in. A certain brunette saw this and stood up and went over to him. "Deku-kun, are you okay?" asked Ochako, concerned. "Why, yeah. Just sore and tired," said Izuku, trying to get his breath back. "Also very hungry, please tell me there's leftovers." Ochako smiled and nodded her head. "Why don't you go and sit down at the table and I'll warm it up for you," said Ochako, turning around and heading to the kitchen. "And no, Uraraka-san. Why you don't have tea to do that?" said Izuku, trying to stop Ochako from doing that. Ochako simply turned around and smiled with a small blush on her face. "It's no trouble, Deku-kun, I don't mind." Izuku nodded his head and sat down at the table. After a couple of minutes, Ochako came back with some rice and fish with some pickled green peppers. "Tea, thank you, Uraraka-san," said Izuku with a slight stutter and blush. Ochako simply smiled and sat next to him as he ate. "So what have you been doing, Deku-kun? You haven't been coming by almost at all," asked Ochako, slightly sad. Izuku looked over at her and felt bad. "I'm sorry, Uraraka-san, that I haven't been coming over as much, but because of the Kamino Ward incident. Nezu and All Might have been having me train really hard, plus they called some other heroes to help." Ochako smiled slightly before she decided to try something new. "Well, how about one of these days we said Ochako before she started blushing and was trying to stop her quirk from activating. "How about me and do go to the store together?" Izuku sat there in silence for a minute before he started blushing. I wouldn't mind, Uraraka-san." "Great, tell me why you're free so you can go," said Ochako. Izuku simply nodded his head and finished eating before he went to his room to take a shower and get ready for school tomorrow. It was Monday and all of Class 1A was sitting at their desks listening to Mr. Aizawa talk to them about different hero protocols. And if the villain has a hostage, you muse dash. He was cut off when the door was kicked off its hinges and went through the window. Aizawa and all of 1A looked over and saw a woman walk in. She had long white hair that contrasted with her wheat-colored skin and piercing red eyes. She also was wearing a white leotard with a crescent moon on her chest. She had a pair of bunny ears and a cottontail right where her tailbone should be. "Miruko, what are you doing here?" said Aizawa while glaring at her. Oh, here," said Miruko before she handed him a note which he read. "So this is where you've been, Midoriya. I'm surprised you're still standing for how rough I've been with you." When she said that all of Class 1A was wide-eyed and looked at Izuku, who was too dense to realize how wrong that sounded. Hee, I'm tougher than I look, plus it's a good thing too since you don't hold back. I still can't feel my legs, said Izuku, which made Mineta start smashing his face in the table in jealousy. Who cares, we are gonna go another round and this time don't hold back, give me everything you got, I'm a big girl, I can take it, said Miruko as she stuck her thumb to her chest. Some of the guys in the class started getting nosebleeds and the girls were blushing a storm. Ochako sat at her table blushing but feeling extremely jealous right now. Are you sure, Miruko-sensei? My max right now is 27% because of those weights you gave me, said Izuku, silently happy that his control jumped up by 7% because of the intense training and sparring he's been having with her and Gran Torino. Trust me, I can take it, and maybe soon we can get you to 35% and then I can take you seriously. Besides, my waist is still sore from how much I had to keep bending and stretching the past 3 days, said Miruko, which made Denki fly back with a nosebleed and other people's jaws hit the ground. If anyone was to look closely, they could see a very faint blush on Aizawa's face along with a tiny smile. Alright, Midoriya, Miruko, get out of here and continue what you've been doing, but try not to destroy a building again. 𝗬𝗏 is tired of having to fix the floors when you guys get rough and start going all out, said Aizawa, making the situation worse and watching Miruko walk out with Izuku closely behind her. Alright, where was I? Yes, when a villain has a hostage, said Aizawa, going back to teaching mode. At training ground beta, both Izuku and Miruko arrived for another round of training. Or in Izuku's case, getting his butt kicked 3 ways from Sunday. Alright, brat, go and get your costume. I gotta talk to Skeletor about what kind of training you're doing, said Miruko, hopping away looking for All Might. Izuku sighed and went to the changing room where his briefcase was. When he walked up to it, he saw a note left on it. Upgraded your costume. Consider this a gift to a great business relationship in the future. 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗲. Izuku opened the case and couldn't help but smile at seeing what his costume looked like. And pick at top but remove the 2, he quickly slipped his costume on and did some quick stretches before he went outside and saw Gran Torino and Miruko. Took your time, brat, said Gran Torino, giving him a sideways glance. New costume. Yeah. That's why I was late, it had some extra stuff so it took me a sec, said Izuku, scratching the back of his head. Anyway, let's get going. I want to see how hard we can push you. Especially since this is my last day. Treat it as a final exam and you got to beat both of us, said Miruko, smiling. After she said that, she blasted towards him and did an axe kick, which he blocked and countered with a jab to her stomach. The jab shot her off of him, but he had to quickly duck from an attack from Gran Torino. Izuku turned towards Gran Torino and did a 15% finger flick, which Gran Torino dodged and launched at him. Izuku raised his hands to block the attack, but Gran Torino changed direction mid-air and kicked him in the head. Izuku stumbled back and was met with Miruko's foot smashing into his face and launching him across the city block, where he smacked into a light pole. He slowly stood up and watched as her and Gran Torino were rocketing towards him while bouncing off the buildings. Izuku lifted his leg up. Oklahoma smash, screamed Izuku as he brought it down on the ground and lifted the road up, creating a wall. Izuku used this to his advantage and sprung up and surprised Miruko with a Detroit smash to her stomach as she cleared the wall. Miruko was launched up in the air and couldn't help but smile at seeing her student jump leaps and bounds in such a short amount of time. Gran Torino came down and tried to attack him, but Izuku reacted faster than he could. One for all 30%, said Izuku as he disappeared in a blur and grabbed Gran Torino's cape and flung him down the road. Gran Torino smacked into the ground hard and slowly stood up and smiled. You're doing good, kid, but I think it's time me and Miruko make the situation more real, said Gran Torino before a massive explosion erupted a couple of blocks away. Izuku looked and saw 5 0-pointers attacking the city with lots of 1, 2, and 3-pointers as well. Young Midoriya, there is a terrorist attack on the city and civilians are being attacked, and you are the only hero there. You have to defeat them. They brought a massive army of robots and they have 4 villains with them. 2 of them you just engaged and the other 2 go by Power Loader and 𝗵𝗲, said All Might over Izuku's calm. Alright, I'll go there now, said Izuku before he started to move towards the destruction. As Izuku was heading there, he saw lots of skinny robots that had civilian written on their chest. He kept running but wasn't moving fast enough to save the people. Come on, I need to move faster, thought Izuku as he pumped 1 for all to his max and was trying to move faster. As he was doing this, he was unknowingly drawing on a quirk that kept building up energy in him. I have to move faster. Faster, faster, said Izuku before he yelled, and when he landed on a building, he felt a massive spike in energy inside him. He ended up using it and it allowed him to rocket down the street and pass both Gran Torino and Miruko in the blink of an eye. Izuku was rocketing towards the 0-pointers and reeled his arm back. Texas Smash! Yelled Izuku as he punched one of them and caused it to fly back and crash into another. In a mere moment he took down 2 0-pointers, but he knew he still had work to do. 1 for all 20%, said Izuku before he started bouncing around and taken down all the 1, 2, and 3-pointers in a green blur. The villains, seeing this, had to act fast, so 𝗵𝗲 created a massive wall which made Izuku stop for a moment. When he did stop, Power Loader popped out of the ground and pulled him waist down in it. Both Miruko and Gran Torino appeared in front of him and kicked him back across the street, where he stopped himself from smashing into the civilian bots. The 4 villains all stood together before Miruko spoke. What's wrong, hero? Is that the best you got? She said with a massive grin. Look at this, they sent 1 hero to stop us and he's weak, 𝐻𝐸, said Power Loader. Izuku, hearing all of this, gritted his teeth. I know I'm weak, but I will keep fighting no matter what, said Izuku. He then stood up and slammed his left in the ground, which shook the city. But I won't let any of you take 1 step further and hurt the civilians, screamed Izuku with a fire in his eyes. The villains subconsciously took a step back at that because the aura Izuku produced was the same as All Might, an unstoppable force and immovable object. Izuku crouched down in a runner stance and charged 1 for all to 40% and blitzed past them and gut-punched 𝗵𝗲. 𝗵𝗲's body went flying back and through a building, knocking him out in an instant. The others were wide-eyed from the sheer speed and force he just generated. Izuku quickly swung around with a high kick and created a massive air blast that destroyed a good portion of the robots. He then blocked an attack from Gran Torino before he shot off in the air. Miruko used about 3/4 of her strength and launched upwards as well and appeared behind him and kicked him to the ground. Izuku slammed in the ground when Power Loader came from underneath and buried his arms and legs. He noticed this, but before he could react, Gran Torino came at high speeds high above him and slammed down on his stomach. Maybe I was wrong, maybe you are just a failure and Night Eye was right, said Gran Torino, lying and hoping to make Izuku push himself further. Izuku looked at Gran Torino with a look of betrayal before something in him snapped. Faster than Gran Torino could comprehend, Izuku's fist slammed into him, launching him into Miruko. Izuku ripped himself out of the ground and stood up and glared at the villains. He then went on the attack, doing a double finger flick, blowing Power Loader away. He then looked and saw the 0-pointers were heading to the civilians and raced towards them. Izuku appeared in front of the 0-pointer and punched its head off before he jumped at the other one and kicking its head in. He then turned and saw the last one, but before he could attack, Miruko and Gran Torino appeared and attacked him. It was now 3 blurs bouncing around the city with a white and yellow one going after the green. Izuku decided to try something, and when he landed on a building he jumped backwards and swung his arm backwards. When he did that, he clotheslined Gran Torino and went further back before he turned around and started heading to the remaining bots. In the observation room, All Might and Nezu were sitting in a pair of chairs watching the fight go on. Both were amazed at how fast Izuku was growing, and soon he'd be ready for the Pro Hero License exam. As they watched, Nezu then turned to All Might. Yagi, I noticed that you've been doing a lot of paperwork and making lots of calls. Would you mind me asking why? Said Nezu before he took a sip of tea and turned back to the monitors. All Might was silent for a moment before he answered, I I've been working on all the paperwork to give Izuku Might Tower when he gets his license. When he said that, Nezu looked at him with a face of shock. Are you sure, Yagi? That's a massive responsibility. Yes, I'm sure, and besides I've been teaching him how to do the paperwork for agencies. I started teaching him that after the sports festival for when he goes pro he'd have more experience with it. Besides, I asked Gran Torino to watch over him for the first month or two to help him with anything he might not know. Said All Might, which made Nezu nod. Also, I noticed a request for one of the spare rooms in 1A to used by Melissa. Why is that? Asked Nezu. I asked her to come here and work with young 𝗧𝗵𝗲 on Izuku's costume to help him with whatever he can. With both of them working on it, Izuku will a force to be reckoned with, said All Might. Very well, but next time give me more of a heads up, said Nezu. Izuku just destroyed the last 0-pointer and was badly injured from his constant fighting. The top of his costume was ripped to shreds and his arms and legs were starting to bruise and cut from him going over his limit. But despite that, he was still standing and will continue till the civilians are out. You're doing very good, brat, but playtime is over, said Gran Torino, who jumped at Izuku. Izuku lifted his right arm up and got ready to do a finger flick, but something else happened. Black wispy tendrils shot out of his hand and started to destroy everything in sight. Both Gran Torino and Miruko stopped and watched as Izuku started panicking and getting flung around by this mystery thing. Izuku got lifted high in the air before he got flung down. "Eno, stop, stop, stop!" screamed Izuku as it continued to fling him around and destroy everything. "Kid, stop and deactivate your quirk!" yelled Miruko, barely dodging a black tendril that cut a light pole in half. "I can't, it's out of control," yelled Izuku before he was flung higher up then into a building. "Damn it, Miruko, can you knock him out?" asked Gran Torino, dodging 3 tendrils that destroyed a part of the building he was on. "I'd try, but that thing would probably kill me," said Miruko as she dodged another tendril. As they were doing that, Izuku was desperately trying to regain control of his quirk. "Come on, stup!" yelled Izuku before his eyes suddenly got foggy and the black wispy tendrils disappeared. Izuku opened his eyes and saw a massive black void with lots of black fog everywhere. He looked down and saw that he was covered in the same stuff as well. "Hey, you got it all wrong, you're not using it right," yelled a mysterious voice. Izuku turned around and saw the same man from the hospital who was standing next to that woman. "You're not using the quirk right. It's manifested. The time is right. Train harder," said the man as he walked up to Izuku. "My quirk is a top-grade quirk and you just letting it run around like a headless chicken. Rein your emotions in and control them. You have to use anger to use it, but don't let it get out of control." The figure then poked Izuku's chest. "We are all with you and you got a sample of the third's quirk, but you're not ready for it, so you're gonna have to use mine. Control our quirks, Izuku, and get stronger so you can defeat that Shigaraki guy." The figure then started to fade away. "Looks like my time is almost up. But remember, we are always with you and you have 5 more quirks. One for All has been growing in power since the first and you have to learn to use it and our quirks. Now don't forget what I said about my quirk or I'll knock some sense into you." After he said that, he disappeared. Izuku opened his eyes and saw both Gran Torino and Miruko standing a ways away from him. "Hey kid, are you alright?" asked Gran Torino. "Why, yeah, I'm alright and I think I'm ready to continue the exam," said Izuku. Both were silent but nodded. Izuku got back in a fighting stance and Gran Torino and Miruko got in theirs. Without warning, Izuku charged at them and he thought back to what the man said. "I have to will it and control my anger to use it. With that, Izuku extended his arm and black wispy tendrils shot out of his wrist and grabbed Miruko. He then slammed his foot in the ground and spun before he released Miruko, which sent her flying across the city. Gran Torino smiled, "So you already have an idea on what to do. Good, let's see how good you are." Izuku ducked under Gran Torino's attack and launched Black WHP at him and grabbed his foot. Before he slammed him in the ground using it, and then he stood up and started leaping towards the civilians to make sure they are safe. As Izuku got near the gate, he saw the last civilian bots going through the gate and a air horn blasting, signaling he won. Izuku fell to the ground and finally let the pain and exhaustion kick him. The two heroes that were still awake walked up to him and smiled. "You did good, brat, you passed," said Miruko with a smile before she leaned down and ruffled his hair. "If you weren't already claimed, I'd probably hop you right now." When Miruko said that, Izuku's face exploded in red as he shot up and started freaking out. Gran Torino simply chuckled, "Youngsters," as he walked away with the others soon following. They all arrived at Recovery Girl's office and were getting healed, and Izuku was getting questioned about his quirk. Izuku answered what he could and told them that it just happened, but gave All Might a look. "Well, your quirk is interesting and I had a lot of fun training and sparring with you, kid. Hopefully I'll see you around and we can spar some other time, but since you have me such a good amount of fun, I'll give you a reward," said Miruko before she walked up to him and kissed his cheek and simply walked away. Izuku promptly fainted after that, with the others in the room laughing. It was now the end of the day, and Izuku was walking back to 1A dorms with some new casts on his arm, right arm and left leg. He also had a bunch of bandages wrapped on him. Izuku walked into the building and everyone stopped and stared at him for a moment. "You guys?" said Izuku, confused. Izuku didn't realize that he had lipstick on his check from Miruko earlier. "Holy SHT, he's actually F Miruko!" yelled Mineta. What? Yelled Izuku in confusion. "Dude, after everything we heard in class and now you come in here with lipstick and bandages. How rough are you two?" asked Denki with a smile. Izuku started waving his good arm around and was trying to explain everything. After an hour of explaining everything and clearing it all up, the class finally understood that they were training and not F. Eventually the night came to a close and everyone started to head to bed. Izuku started to head to the elevator before he was stopped by Ochako. Deku-kun, is that all true and you were just training?" asked Ochako as she looked away. "Yes, Uraraka-san, I promise that it was just training. If you don't believe me, you can ask All Might and he'll tell you," said Izuku, berating himself for almost calling him dad in front of Ochako. "No, it's okay, I believe you, but said Ochako as she started to twiddle her thumbs. Plus, before Izuku could ask anything, Ochako quickly kissed his cheek. "Good night, Deku, see you in the morning," said Ochako very fast before she ran to her room. Izuku stood there before his brain went to autopilot and took him to his room, where he face planted in his bed with one last thought. "I was kissed by two appealing women today. One of them was Miruko and the other was Uraraka-san. Please don't let this be a dream," thought Izuku before he passed out in his bed. The class was sitting in their homeroom waiting for Mr. Aizawa to show up and begin class. As they were waiting, they were all talking about all the different things that they will be doing. Just then the door opened and Aizawa crawled in like a caterpillar in his sleeping bag. As the class silently watched him scoot his way to the desk, then slowly stand up and stare at them. "Good morning, everyone, we have something special planned for all of you," said Aizawa as he pulled out a juice pouch and drank it. "We only have a week to do this, so we will be drilling special moves into all of you." The class looked excited at hearing that and started to cheer before Aizawa glared at them, making them be quiet. "Anyways, we only have 1 week to get all of you ready for the provisional license exams, so get your costumes on and meet us at the PE grounds. You all have 15 minutes, so get a move on," said Aizawa before he opened the wall for the cases and left. Everyone was standing in the PE grounds looking around and they saw 𝗧𝗵𝗵𝗲 and Midnight standing there. The class walked up to them and waited for Aizawa to show up. "Hello class, I'm sure Aizawa explained to all of you that we will be doing special move training. We will be helping all of you with it if you need it, but anyways go out and get started, 𝗧𝗵𝗲," said Midnight before 𝗧𝗵𝗲 nodded and placed his hands on the ground and changed the ground so everyone can train. The class all ran off and started training, but before Izuku could, he felt someone grab his shoulder. He turned around and saw that it was 𝗧𝗵𝗲. "Sorry, but Nezu told me that you will be training somewhere else," said 𝗧𝗵𝗲 feeling bad. Izuku looked down but nodded. "So where will I be training?" "Not sure, he just told me that he wants you outside the building and your teachers will be there," said 𝗧𝗵𝗲. Izuku nodded and walked off and headed outside the building, and when he arrived there he saw the pro hero 𝗧𝗏 and Aizawa standing there. 𝗲𝗵𝗲 the number 4 hero, said Izuku before it turned into a mutter storm with the kanjis of the words flying and some hitting the two heroes. 𝗧𝗏 looked over at Aizawa. "Is this normal?" he said while stopping some of the kanji from hitting him. "Sai, yes, but he'll stop in a moment or we get All Might to chop him on the head to stop him," said Aizawa. Just then Izuku stopped his mutter spree and started waving his arms around. "Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to that, I'm just a big fan of you and heroes in general," said Izuku. It's fine, but anyways Nezu called in for a favor and asked me to help you get ready for the pro hero exams," said 𝗧𝗏. "That rat scares me," said Aizawa as he noticed a camera zoom in on him after he said that and felt a chill go down his spine. "It's scary what he can do and is capable of. But anyways, me and Aizawa here will help get you up to speed so you can take the exam," said 𝗧𝗏 as he cracked his neck. "Right, I'm ready whenever you two are," said Izuku as he got in his fighting stance and his face turned serious. Meanwhile, inside the training grounds, all of Class 1A was trying everything they could think of as super moves. Katsuki learned a new move where he cupped on hand over a open palm and concentrated the explosion he could make, as he called it, a pea shot. Todoroki was practicing with his quirk, trying to make something with his flames. All the other students were trying their best, and a certain gravity girl noticed that Izuku was missing, so went and asked the teachers. "Ms. Midnight, where's Deku-kun?" asked Ochako walking up to Midnight. Oh, Nezu has him doing special training, but don't worry, he's fine I think," said Midnight with slight concern knowing the principal. Don't worry, young Midoriya is quite alright," said All Might walking into the room. "Oh hi All Might, how are you feeling?" said Ochako. "I'm feeling good, just don't tell Recovery Girl or she might think something else is wrong with me mentally and physically," said All Might chuckling. Ochako laughed at his joke and was about to get back to super move when everyone heard a loud noise that sounded like a wall being blown apart. They all turned and saw Aizawa was sent flying through wall and smacked into a concrete pillar. He slowly stood up and got his capture scarf ready when a green blur appeared in front of him and he barely dodged the strike. Everyone looked and saw Izuku was fighting Aizawa and noticed that Izuku's quirk was being deactivated but was still holding his own. Just then the pro hero 𝗧𝗏 came through the hole in the wall and extended his body into a string and wrapped around Izuku, locking him up. Izuku tried to overpower him but couldn't because his quirk was still deactivated from Aizawa, but he kept trying and waiting for Aizawa to blink. Just then he felt his quirk come back and he didn't waste a moment and overpowered 𝗧𝗏 and launched himself backwards away from Aizawa's sight. The class watched as Izuku flew backwards and smashed his back into a concrete pillar and got 𝗧𝗏 off of him. He then threw a high kick at him with the air blast, knocking him away. Then Izuku saw a familiar scarf coming to him, so he acted quickly and grabbed it and let Aizawa pull it taut. He then used his superior strength to spin and fling Aizawa into a pillar. Izuku capitalized advantage and blitzed to him and gut punched him with a 15% smash. Aizawa's body lurched forwards from the punch and he ended up puking out his lunch. Aizawa looked up and quickly wrapped his scarf around Izuku's arm before he punched him in the face, which made both of them fall to the ground. They both smacked into the ground with Izuku getting up first and look around for 𝗧𝗏. Just then he noticed out of the corner of his eye a thin thread coming to him, so he acted quickly and did a finger flick. The finger flicked through the sting which reverted back into 𝗧𝗏. Both 𝗧𝗏 and Izuku were about to get out before they heard someone speak. "All right, I believe that's enough," said Nezu, walking up to them. They turned and slowly got out of their combat stances. "Because you three decided to go a little crazy, you can now all join me in a long lecture about hero psychology," said Nezu, walking away with both Izuku and 𝗧𝗏 trying to run away before Izuku grabbed them both. "Might as well get over with now instead of later when he makes it longer. Come on, let's get this torture over with," said Izuku, dragging the two with him as they were flailing around trying to escape. The class just stood there dumbfounded at what they witnessed, and a certain explosive boy was seething in rage. "Stupid If Deku, I'll show him why he's worthless and doesn't deserve to be here," said Katsuki, who turned around and went back to training. The next day at the airport, Melissa arrived but would only be staying a week before she had to go back. She was asked by her uncle to help Izuku with his costume and work with a girl named May. As she walked out of the airport, she saw her uncle and smiled. "Uncle Might," said Melissa as she ran up to him and hugged him. "Huh, Melissa, it's so good seeing you," said All Might before he let her go. "So how's David?" "Papa is doing good. They said he might be able to be let out early," said Melissa with a smile. "Ha, that's great, but let's continue this conversation in the car," said All Might as he picked up her briefcase and put it in the car. Small time skip. Melissa and All Might arrived at UA and were heading to the support department where he told Izuku to go. After a couple minutes they arrived at a door with a sign that said support department and knocked on the door. Who is it?" "Oh, All Might, is this the girl you mentioned?" said Power Loader. "Yes, Power Loader, and is young Midoriya and young 𝗵𝗃 here?" asked All Might. "Yeah, they are in the back. 𝗵𝗃 is having him test his strength so she can make gear to handle it. That will also allow him to go over his limit and not have massive drawbacks, but is struggling so far," said Power Loader, who pointed over to where they were. All Might and Melissa walked over and saw Izuku was wearing a massive destroyed gauntlet. "Man, this is gonna be harder than I thought," said May, scratching her head. 𝗵𝗃, it doesn't have to handle 100%, I'd just be fine with it handling 50% for now," said Izuku. Maybe I can help," said Melissa, joining the conversation. "Oh, Melissa, it's been so long, how are you?" said Izuku, smiling and waving to her. "I've been good, Deku, how about you?" said Melissa, smiling back. "I'm good, just trying to help 𝗵𝗃 all I can," said Izuku. Well, me and 𝗵𝗃 will work on something that should help you and be able to handle your quirk to an extent," said Melissa before she walked over and looked at the blueprints 𝗵𝗃 had. Maybe we can use the same thing I used for your full gauntlet back at Island? Because this is on short notice, it won't be as strong as the last one, but me and Hatsune should be able to make one to handle your 50%. "Oh, Izuku told me about that, baby, I can't wait to see it, so let's get started," said May as she ran next to her. A couple of days passed with Izuku keep coming back to the support department and testing out the gear. It was now the day before the exam and both May and Melissa never left the support department during the time there. Izuku was called to the support department and was told that his new gear has been built. Izuku walked into the support department and saw both Melissa and May were asleep, and Power Loader was there as well. "Hey Midoriya, the girls got your stuff done, but just let them sleep for a little, then they will tell you about it," said Power Loader before he left. Izuku sat in the room and waited for about 2 hours, and he heard some groaning and saw May wake up. "Oh hey Izuku," said May, stretching, "me and Melissa got your babies done." Soon Melissa woke up and both her and May helped put the support gear on Izuku that covered his arms and legs. "Okay Deku, from what me and May were able to do, we were able to get it to handle about 50% no problem and maybe 60% for a short PRD. But any more than that it will damage the gear," said Melissa. "Now why don't you try it, Izuku?" said May with a smile. Izuku nodded and powered one for all to 50% and threw a smash at the target, and he felt no pain. "It doesn't hurt," said Izuku in shock before he smiled and hugged both girls. "Thank you so much, I'll never forget what you two did for me." No problem, Deku, besides Uncle Might asked me and her to personally work with you on any and all support gear of yours," said Melissa, hugging back before she let go. 𝗵𝗃𝗬, if you're gonna be number one, you're gonna need the best support gear ever, and me and her will provide that," said May, smiling. The next day, the class arrived at the building that will hold the license exam. They all got off the bus and were standing in front of Aizawa. "All right, now that we are here, Aizawa was cut off when someone shouted his name. "Hey Aizawa, how's it going?" said the smiling hero Ms. Joke as she walked towards him. "So, since you're here, wanna go out on a date after this?" "No," said Aizawa with a sigh while she laughed. "You're so funny, Aizawa, so let's get married," said Ms. Joke. Aizawa ignored her and looked back at his class. "All right everyone but Midoriya, head in and follow the instructions." "Midoriya, you come with me, got it?" said Aizawa as he walked away with Ms. Joke and Izuku following him. After a couple of minutes of walking, they arrived to the viewing stands and sat down. Aizawa-sensei, why am I here and not with my class?" asked Izuku, confused. "That's because your exam will be after everyone else's, since yours is the hero license exam and not the provisional one," said Aizawa while sighing. "Yours you will be doing alone, so it'd be illogical to have you do this. Now be quiet and watch, problem child." Izuku's simply sweat dropped while Ms. Joke started laughing. So Izuku watched as the classes came out and each student was wearing 3 discs on them. The students also had a couple of ball to throw or tag the discs to get points. If all 3 are red, you're, and if all 3 are green, you pass. The rules were simply, but the test was gonna be harder. Izuku watched as Class 1A stuck together at first before they all split off in different groups. Katsuki ran by himself before Kirishima and Denki joined him. Todoroki went alone and Momo, Tsu, and Shoji went off in a group to go and get points. The rest of 1A stayed in a big group to take on the other big groups of students. Izuku watched and analyzed how one student from Shiketsu named Inasa took out 120 students in mere seconds using his quirk. He continued watching as everyone continued fighting and his class was struggling at first but slowly pulled through. Izuku was extremely happy when he found out his whole class passed the exam and would make it to the final tests. After a quick break to let everyone get a breather, the students went back out into the city and waited for instructions. Just then the city started blowing up as if a terrorist attack happened. The actors then went in to act like hurt civilians and the students soon went in to try and save them. Some of the students did amazing while others, well, cussing and screaming at the person you're supposed to save, didn't get a lot of points. Eventually another explosion happened and the hero gang Orca came out with a bunch of henchmen. Some students started to panic, but one came out and slammed his hands on the ground and started shaking it to stop the villains. Sadly, it proved futile when Gang Orca used his echolocation and blasted him away. As the student got blasted away, Todoroki came and tried to use his quirk to stop him, but it was blasted away when Inasa tried to do the same. Izuku was cut off from watching when he felt someone tap on his shoulder. He looked and saw that it was All Might. "Young Midoriya, could you come with me? Someone would like to talk to you." Sure, All Might," said Izuku as he stood up and followed All Might. After a couple of minutes they arrived to another part of the viewing stands and he saw Endeavor. Endeavor turned and looked at the Izuku. "So you're the one that helped save us from that monster, correct?" said Endeavor. "Yes sir," said Izuku. Don't call me that, it makes me feel older than I already am," said Endeavor. "Tell me, boy, what type of hero will you be?" Izuku turned and looked at Endeavor and realized that he wanted to see his resolve. "I want to be a hero that when people look at they feel hope and they feel safe knowing that I'm here. I want to be a hero that can inspire everyone to become a hero regardless of your quirk, and all that matters is your determination. I want to be a pillar or symbol of hope that will help hold society up in its darkest hour," said Izuku with pure determination. Endeavor looked at the boy for another minute before he chuckled. "That's good to hear, but you're still a long ways to become that. You still need more experience for starters." Izuku just nodded his head. "I know, and I'm willing to push myself as hard as I have to achieve that dream," said Izuku. "Good, and also," said Endeavor before he looked away for a moment, then back at him. "Thank you for saving my son from my stupidity, and thank you for saving us from that monster." "I was just doing what any hero would do," said Izuku with a smile. He, I swear I think my son is right, and you are All Might's secret love child or something, said Endeavor, unknowingly making Shoto happy with him. Izuku and All Might gave each other a quick worried glance. Yeah, he says that a lot, and I found a massive pin-up board in his room with theories, said Izuku. That honestly doesn't surprise me, said Endeavor. Oh, right before I forget, my wife Ray asked me to invite you for dinner as a thank you whenever you are free to. Well, I'd have to ask Grand Torino and Aizawa-sensei first, but if they agree I'll let Todoroki know, said Izuku. Endeavor nodded before he turned back to the exam and saw Shoto and Inesa working together and holding back Gang Orca. Soon the siren went off telling the students the test was over, but before they could relax the announcer began speaking. Thank you all for participating in the test and doing a decent job. Now all students please leave the battlegrounds so we can prepare for the hero license exam, said the announcer with the students leaving. Young Midoriya, you better head down there, said All Might with Izuku nodding and running off to go and take his test. All the students who took the test were now in the viewing area of the stadium watching the arena for the next test. It didn't take long before the gates opened and Izuku came out of gate. For the Pro Hero License exam you will be put under more pressure and have to save, protect, and carry civilians to the medical area, as well as defend against villains who will show up randomly. Now let the test begin, said the announcer. As soon as Izuku heard begin, he blasted off into the destroyed city looking for injured civilians. He turned a corner and saw a couple of villains about to attack the hurt civilians. This is gonna be easy, said the villain as he raised his arm and got ready to attack the civilian. But before he could, a green blur appeared in front of him and kicked him into a building, knocking him out. The other villain didn't have enough time to react before Izuku's finger flicked him into a destroyed car, knocking him out as well. Izuku turned around and looked at the civilians and smiled. Don't worry, because now I am here, said Izuku, trying to imitate All Might. Before the civilians could respond, Izuku rushed to them and began checking on them. Does anywhere hurt and is anything pinning you down? Said Izuku. This kid is doing amazing. He immediately takes down the villains, then ensures I'm safe. Then he walks over to me to see if I'm hurt or if anything is pinning me down to the building. This kid is gonna be a great hero, thought the actor. I think my leg is broken. Izuku immediately checked his leg and quickly made a makeshift splint to hold it and picked him up and out him on his back. He then reached over and picked up the other civilian and held him under his arm. Did you see anyone else? Said Izuku. My grandpa, I don't see him, said the civilian, worried. Don't worry, I'll find him, but first I gotta bring you to the medical area, said Izuku before he started jumping to the area and dropped them off. Izuku immediately turned around and headed back to where was and saw an old man and quickly picked him up and brought him over. Izuku continued this for another 8 minutes of taking down minor villains and saving the civilians. Izuku was running to a destroyed building when a white blur shot at him and kicked him across the street. He slowly got up but immediately had to jump away as a massive blast of flames came at him. He looked and saw Endeavor was walking towards him and blasting another fireball at him. He jumped up and held on to the side of a building, dodging the fireball, but then saw a shadow. He turned and saw Hawks above him with a feather sword and slash him to the ground. Before he could hit the ground, Miruko appeared and kicked him away. This seems kinda unfair for Deku-kun to be doing all this stuff by himself, as well as fight 3 of some of the strongest heroes we have, said Ochako. I have to agree, it does seem unfair for Midoriya, said Todoroki, glaring at his father, who threw a fire javelin at Izuku, who dodged. Maybe there's a reason why? Asked Momo curiously. Indeed there is, said Nezu, who was sitting on All Might's shoulder as he sat next to the class. Because of what happened at Kamino Ward, Midoriya is being looked at as the next symbol. So we have to push him harder than anyone else and help him get there. But won't that wear him down? Asked Ida. Don't worry, young Midoriya can handle it. Besides, regardless of how hard we are pushing him, we still make sure he rests," said All Might, watching Izuku dodge a kick from Miruko and sending an air blast at her. "But why is my father down there?" said Todoroki with narrowed eyes. "Because he knows that Midoriya will be the symbol to hold us up, and he's going to make sure he's strong enough to do it," said Nezu, seeing Izuku use Black Whip to grab a civilian and pull him to safety. The class turned back to Izuku and watched him fight, but a certain explosive user was seething in rage. "So while we are putzing around, he is getting stronger and stronger, that demon If Deku," thought Katsuki in rage. Izuku whipped around and sent another air blast at the villains, holding them back as he brought the civilian to the medical area. He then turned around and launched to them and was ready to face them down. "So you done running, hero?" said 𝗵𝗲𝗏, getting his flames ready. Izuku decided to use intimidation tactic, so he power up one for all and slammed his fist in the ground. The ground exploded from the shock of it, and Izuku aimed his fist in a way that will send it to the villains. The villains saw this and all got out of the way. Hawks flew up and was about to send some of his feathers to find him, when he saw a green blur and Izuku blitzed him through a building. Both Izuku and Hawks looked at each other and attacked. Hawks sent some of his feathers at Izuku to throw him off and make openings for him to attack. Izuku was quickly getting overwhelmed, so he threw a quick 5% punch which blasted the feathers away. He then charged at Hawks and used Black Whip to clash with his feather sword. Both were in a deadlock before Izuku quickly released the deadlock, catching Hawks off guard. Izuku used that to his advantage and kneed him in the gut before he wrapped his arms around him and did a German suplex. Hawks was embedded in the concrete and Izuku reached for his belt and grabbed the cuffs and restrained his hands and pulled him out. "Sorry Hawks, but you and Miruko are the biggest threat," said Izuku as he tightened the cuffs and picked him up. No problem, besides that was badass. But next time we fight I'm gonna take it more seriously," said Hawks, laughing. Izuku chuckled and jumped out of the building, carrying Hawks to the medical area that had police so they can restrain him. But as he was moving he had a weird feeling that told him to dodge, so he quickly jumped aside. Luckily he did, because Miruko appeared there and kicked the ground. You're getting good at dodging, brat, but let's get serious," said Miruko with her famous grin forming on her face. Izuku looked at her and was trying to find a way to either take her out fast or distract her long enough. Miruko saw the hesitation and lunged towards him. "Kaguya Moon!" yelled Miruko as she did one of her most famous kicks that launched Izuku across the city. Izuku smashed through 2 skyscrapers before he launched Black Whip and stopped himself. He hoisted the now unconscious Hawks and looked to his side and saw the medical area. Izuku quickly tossed Hawks there. "Secure that villain quickly, I'll deal with the other 2," yelled Izuku at the officers. The officers nodded and secured Hawks and brought him to the holding area. Izuku then turned around and quickly grabbed the pavement below him and lifted it up and stopped a torrent of flames. The flames were slowly melting the pavement and Izuku couldn't hold it forever. Izuku quickly came up with an idea and cocked his fist back. "Texas Smash!" yelled Izuku. The pavement he punched destroyed into lots of small projectiles and launched at 𝗵𝗏𝗏, who raised his arm to block the attack. 𝗵𝗏𝗏 was about to drop his arms when a green blur appeared in front of him and copied a famous kick. Izuku tucked his arms into his chest and twisted his whole body to his hips to get as much torque as possible. When he did, he cranked the power up to 60% for a mere moment and launched his leg at 𝗵𝗏𝗏. "Kaguya Crescent!" screamed Izuku as the kick hit 𝗵𝗏𝗏 so hard it shattered the bones in his arms and sent him into the arena wall. 𝗵𝗏𝗏 smashed into the wall and was embedded in it and felt a couple of ribs broke from the impact. Izuku fell down on the ground, panting from having to push himself so hard. But he was knocked out of his thoughts when he heard a familiar thumping and looked and saw Miruko thumping her foot in excitement. "Okay Izuku, we are gonna go all out now," said Miruko, who got ready for the most exciting fight of her life. Izuku slowly stood up and got in a fighting stance and made the gesture he was ready. Both of them launched at each other and were bouncing from building to building, smashing into each other with powerful attacks. To the spectators it was just a green blur and white blur that kept clashing and making massive shockwaves in the city. Izuku had better speed and strength, but Miruko had better flexibility and more experience over him. Izuku jumped off a building and smashed his leg at Miruko's. When he did, he felt his shin vibrate from the force. He forced down the pain and overpowered her with strength. He spun and did a backward spin kick that sent her back. Miruko flew into a light pole and grabbed his and used her own velocity to launch back at him and kick him into the ground. Izuku crashed into the ground and Miruko landed on top of him and held her foot on his throat. "You did good, kid, but you're not experienced enough to take me out," said Miruko. Just then the sirens rang, telling them the test was over. Miruko looked down and saw the look of sadness and disappointment on Izuku's face. So she reached over and pulled him up and gave him a hug. "You did good, kid. No, wait, you did amazing and I'm sure you passed," said Miruko, who put her arm on his shoulder. Really?" asked Izuku with slight hope. "After everything you just did, they would be stupid not to let you pass. Now come on, let's get you healed up," said Miruko as she dragged him to the medical wing. It was the end of the day and everyone passed except Katsuki and Todoroki, who both didn't have enough points. Izuku was looking at his hero license and couldn't help but smile with some tears coming out of his eyes. "Good job, Deku, and I knew you could do it," said Ochako, walking up to him with a smile. Thank you, Uraraka-san, and I knew you could do it as well," said Izuku, smiling. "So now that you're a pro hero, what will you do? Will you join someone or go solo?" asked Ochako. I'm not sure. I'll probably ask All Might or Gran Torino to what they think would be best for me," said Izuku before he felt someone hug him. "Good job, young Midoriya, I knew you could do it," said All Might with a massive smile on his face. "Thank All Might," said Izuku, smiling. "Young Midoriya, don't worry, I have an announcement tomorrow for the world and you will be explained what you will be doing," said All Might, smiling. "What's the announcement gonna be, All Might?" asked Izuku curiously. "That will be revealed tomorrow at the announcement, which reminds me you'll have to get your hero costume repaired ASAP," said All Might, patting his back. "Now go with your class and celebrate your license. I asked Aizawa to let you guys get a little more freedom tonight, so enjoy it," said All Might before he walked away, following Nizu. "Well, Deku-kun, I guess this is our next big step to become heroes," said Ochako, looking at the setting sun. Yeah, it is," said Izuku, watching the sunset. In a dark lab, there was a little girl with white hair and a bronze horn on her forehead. She had big eyes that were red. Her arms and legs were covered in bloody bandages. She was sitting on the floor of her empty room crying, hoping someone will save her. "Please, someone save me," said the little girl before her door was slammed open. A man wearing a bird mask walked in and looked at her and started to walk to her. "Time for more work, Eri," said the man, dragging the girl away. "Please, someone help me," thought the little girl. Class 1A was in the common room celebrating that they passed the license exams. Aoyama decided to make everyone a French cuisine as a reward for passing the exam. "Man, that was so amazing, and dude, when you kicked Endeavor into a wall and embedded him, so manly," said Kirishima with stars in his eyes. "I must agree with him, that was amazing, and I wish I had a camera to record it," said Todoroki. "Here you go," said Nizu, appearing out of nowhere holding a CD. "I recorded it in 4K for you." Then he just suddenly disappeared in the blink of the eye. Todoroki S&D. Everyone wanted to ask where he came from and how he does these things, but they stopped asking when a while back they found Aizawa in a corner rocking back and forth in the classroom. "How does he do that?" asked Mina, creeped out. "Let's not think about it, it might make us go insane," said Jiro, watching TV. "All right everyone, my French cuisine is done," said Aoyama, smiling with sparkles coming from nowhere. "Wow, it smells delicious. What is it?" asked Shoji, walking up to him. "Why, it's frog legs," said Aoyama. "Ribbit," said Tsu while slowly walking away. "Wow, and I thought Bakugo was in butt," said Todoroki wide-eyed. Aoyama just turned and smiled before eating the frog legs. Time skip. Izuku just finished talking to his mom and saw Ochako just getting off the phone as well. He thought back to a couple days ago when she asked him if he wanted to hang out with her. "I'm gonna ask her," muttered Izuku walking over to her. Izuku walked over to her and gently tapped her shoulder. Hey Uraraka-san. Oh hey Deku, how are you? Said Ochako smiling. Oh, I am good. I was wondering if you'd like to, stuttered Izuku while blushing like crazy. If I'd like to? Asked Ochako curiously. Would I like to got a thema with Metamaru? Said Izuku while wrapping his arms around his head to hide his embarrassment. Ochako stood there for a moment processing what he just said before she started blushing and floating to the ceiling. Izuku saw this and used Black Whip to gently grab her and pull her back to the ground. I may love to Deku-kun, said Ochako trying to calm down. Gee, great. Would why you like to go around lunch? Asked Izuku nervously. Yeah, I'd love to, said Ochako smiling. Great, I'll pick you up around lunch then, said Izuku with a slight stutter. It was the next day and everyone was hanging out talking and having fun except two students who were in their rooms panicking. What do I asked Uraraka-san and Adadi and I don't know, said Izuku extremely fast while panicking. Wait, I know Dad should have lots of experience dating people. I mean, he's the #1 hero, said Izuku pulling out his phone and calling All Might. Hello young Izuku, what can I do for you? Asked All Might. Dad, I was wondering if you could give me some advice on dating. Since you're the #1 hero, you should have lots of experience, said Izuku before he was interrupted by the sound of All Might puking out "Bu. I'm sorry my boy, but I've never dated before until recently," said All Might in shame. Oh, I see, said Izuku with his head down before he remembered something. Wait, then why is it I came home one day and you and my mom were talking like good friends while you say next to each other on the couch? Oh, did you know the floor is made out of floor? Said All Might trying to change the conversation. Wait, what? Said Izuku clearly confused. Just wear something nice looking that will impress the girl you're with. Don't worry young Izuku, I know you see, said All Might before he put out "Bill. Dad, are you alright? Asked Izuku worried. I'm fine, just take my advice and have fun on your date. Also make sure you're back by 8 p.m. so you can watch the announcement I'm going to make, said All Might. Wait, but you didn't answer my dash, said Izuku before he heard the phone get hung up. I'll have to ask Mom about that then, said Izuku before he turned and looked at his pile of clothes. After a couple more minutes of deciding, he decided to go with simple black jeans and gray shirt. He also wore a green hoodie in case it got cold. Izuku opened his door and saw Todoroki in front of his door with a notepad. I heard you talking to someone and then I heard you call him Dad. Was it All Might or your real father? Asked Todoroki, hoping it was All Might. Said Izuku trying to find a way out of this situation. Oh look, all you can eat soba, he said pointing down the hall. Todoroki whipped his head and looked for the all-you-can-eat soba but didn't see any. He turned back and Izuku was gone. I will prove All Might is Midoriya's dad and then I shall help my father prove All Might is the hero Paragon's secret love child, said Todoroki walking to his room and looking at his conspiracy board. At Endeavor's agency, Endeavor sneezed while looking at his own conspiracy board. Someone must be talking about me no matter. Mark my words, All Might, me and Shoto will find the truth between you and your family, said Endeavor grabbing a red string and connecting it to All Might, then Paragon, and then finally Izuku. Standing at Endeavor's door was his sidekick Burnin, who walked in with a report. She saw what was going on and decided the report can wait and slowly left the office. Back at 1A dorms in another part of the building, 𝐒𝐴𝐽𝐾 was in a similar situation as was, trying to decide what to wear. This. No, it's not pretty enough. This. No, this wouldn't look good on me. This. No, said 𝐒𝐴𝐽𝑘, struggling to find what to wear. Ugh, this is so hard. I'd ask for help, but... Wait, I know, said 𝐒𝐴𝐽𝑘, and calling Momo up to her room. After a couple of minutes, said girl arrived at her room and came in. So, 𝐒𝐴𝐽𝑘, what is it you needed my help with? Asked Momo curiously. Could you help me find something nice to wear for my date? Said 𝐒𝐴𝐽𝑘, blushing. Oh my god. Did Izuku finally ask you out? Oh, I have to tell everyone and dash, said Momo, jumping with happiness before she was interrupted by 𝐒𝐴𝐽𝑘. No, please don't tell anybody yet, we aren't dating. It's just a date, said 𝐒𝐴𝐽𝑘, trying to calm Momo down. Oh. Well, I understand and I promise not to tell anyone, and don't worry, I'll make you so appealing that Midoriya will probably faint from seeing you, said Momo, smiling while activating her quirk and making makeup and some clothes for her. Back at the UA entrance. Couple minutes later, Izuku was standing by it nervously waiting for 𝐒𝐴𝐽𝑘 to show up. Okay, let's see. Wallet check, phone check, money check, said Izuku, making sure he has everything for today. Hey Deku, yelled a certain bubbly voice that belonged to 𝐒𝐴𝐽𝑘. Oh hey you, said Izuku with his brain shutting down from what he was seeing. 𝐒𝐴𝐽𝑘 came up to him wearing a nice knee-length red skirt and a pair of black leggings. She also wore a nice purple t-shirt and had a little bit of light makeup on, along with her hair in a little bun on the back of her head. So, how do I look? Asked 𝐒𝐴𝐽𝑘 nervously while blushing. Like an angel, said Izuku before he realized what he said and started blushing. 𝐒𝐴𝐽𝑘 blushed even more at hearing that and walked over to him. Thank you, and you look very handsome, Deku-kun, said 𝐒𝐴𝑘, making Izuku blush even more. So, would you like to get going? Asked Izuku. Let's go, said 𝐒𝐴𝑘, walking next to as they headed to the nearby mall. After some walking with a little bit of talking, they arrived at the mall. So where would you like to go first, Uraraka-san? Asked Izuku, looking at her. Let's just wander around and see what we can find, said 𝐒𝐴𝑘, smiling. Both of them started walking around the store while window shopping and looking for stuff they were interested in. As they were walking by one store, they walked into. Izuku noticed that 𝐒𝐴𝑘 was looking at some hairpins. Izuku made a mental note at that, and after she walked to another part, he snuck over and bought the one she was looking at. They continued to walk and they saw that the mall had a small theater and was playing some movies. Hey, would you like to watch a movie? Asked Izuku, gesturing to the movie theater. Sure, let's see what they have, said 𝐒𝐴𝑘, looking at the movie selections. As they were looking at the movie choices, Izuku saw one that had a man wearing all black combat gear. He also had a symbol of a bat on his chest and was standing in front of a building with the same symbol on it but on fire. The movie was called The Dark Knight. Wow, I don't recognize that hero. Who is he? Asked Izuku, racking his brain trying to figure out who this man was. Haha, that's no hero you'd recognize. This movie came out over 200 years ago and was one of the best movies ever made, said an old man walking over to them wearing an employee uniform for the movie theaters. Who is he? Asked 𝐒𝐴𝑘. That guy is Batman, and he's a vigilante that beats up criminals and uses his mind to outsmart them, said the old man, smiling. Wow, I wonder what type of intelligence quirk he has, said Izuku. He doesn't have one, said the old man, shocking the two. Really, then how is he a hero? Asked 𝐒𝐴𝑘, confused since she always heard you had to have one to be a hero. He uses his brain and gadgets along with his training, said the old man. Both Izuku and 𝐒𝐴𝑘 looked at the movie and agreed they wanted to watch it. I'd like 2 tickets please, said Izuku. Very well, said the old man, getting the 2 tickets. Izuku and 𝐒𝐴𝑘 went into the theater and sat down watching the movie. Sometime during the movie, Izuku and 𝐒𝐴𝑘's hands started to drift towards each other and they held them. As they were watching the scene that revealed two faces, it scared 𝗀𝗧𝗪, who lightly screamed and immediately grabbed onto Izuku. Izuku tried to calm her down, but 𝗀𝗧𝗪 just kept holding onto Izuku's arm. Some time passed and Izuku drifted his head and leaned it on her head. 𝗀𝗧𝗪, feeling this, smiled but wanted it to be more comfortable, so she moved the arm she was holding and put it around her as she leaned against his chest. Soon the movie ended and they both left the theater while holding hands. "Wow, that movie was amazing, a little dark but it was amazing," said Izuku with stars in his eyes. "𝐻𝐻, I have to agree, it was a very good movie," said 𝗀𝗧𝗪, smiling. Just then both of their stomachs grumbled and they blushed. Maybe we should get some food," said Izuku while scratching the back of his head. "Yes, some food should be good," said 𝗀𝗧𝗪 as they walked over to the food court and got food. Time skip. Both Izuku and 𝗀𝗧𝗪 were walking along the beach that Izuku cleaned months earlier. "Wow, this beach is so appealing, I'm so happy it got cleaned up by whoever did it," said 𝗀𝗧𝗪, looking out to sea, admiring the view. "𝐻𝐻, yeah, but it was really hard," said Izuku before realizing what he said. "Wait, what do you mean it was? Wait, you cleaned the beach?" said 𝗀𝗧𝗪, wide-eyed. "𝐻𝐻. Yeah, I did, it was part of my training," said Izuku, scratching the back of his head. "Deku-kun, that's amazing, I can't believe you were able to do that," said 𝗀𝗧𝗪, bouncing from happiness. After that they both stood there and watched the setting sun before Izuku squeezed 𝗀𝗧𝗪's hand and looked at her. "Uraraka-san, there's something I need to tell you," said Izuku, trying to muster up his courage. 𝗀𝗧𝗪 turned and looked at him. "What is it, Deku-kun?" I like you, 𝗀𝗧𝗪," said Izuku while screaming the last words. Really?" said 𝗀𝗧𝗪, blushing. "Yes, I really like you, but I understand if you can't like me, 𝗵𝗃𝗧," said Izuku before he was cut off by a pair of soft lips. Izuku's eyes widened, realizing that 𝗀𝗧𝗪 kissed him, but he slowly kissed her back and wrapped his arms around her lower back. 𝗀𝗧𝗪 felt this and instinctively wrapped her arms around his neck while deepening the kiss. After a solid minute of kissing, they slowly broke apart from the kiss. "I really like you too, 𝗧𝗏," said 𝗀𝗧𝗪 as she leaned forward and put her forehead against his. Izuku smiled and leaned down and kissed her again before he pulled back, smiling. "So would you like to be my girlfriend?" 𝗀𝗧𝗪 didn't say anything, instead she just leaned forward and kissed him again. "Does that answer your question?" said 𝗀𝗧𝗪 as she put her head against his chest, smiling. Said Izuku, resting his head on top of hers. "Oh right, I got you this." Izuku pulled out the hairpin and gently put it in her hair, holding some of her bangs back. "Wow, I didn't think it'd be any more possible for you to be appealing." 𝗀𝗧𝗪 blushed and smiled and gave him another kiss. The new couple were walking back to the UA dorms and entered the building. They decided to keep the relationship a secret for a short while until everything calmed down. As they both walked in, they noticed Kirishima waving them over. "Hey Midoriya bro, come over here, All Might is making an announcement." Izuku walked over and sat on the couch with 𝗀𝗧𝗪 sitting next to him, watching the TV to see what All Might was going to say. All Might walked up on stage and have a small wave and smile before he cleared his throat. "Hello everyone, I have a very important announcement to make," said All Might, making the audience become silent. "As you all remember, during the Kamino Ward incident, I almost lost to a villain who almost killed me. And he probably would have killed me if it wasn't for one of my students named Izuku Midoriya, whose hero name is known as Deku. As I was losing the battle, young Midoriya decided to risk his life and his future as a hero to save me and stop that villain. Because of him, I'm still standing and the villain is behind bars, but sadly I had to go into retirement because of that, and so I came here to make this announcement to give you all hope," said All before he closed his eyes and took a deep breath. "Young Midoriya is my successor," said All Might, making the audience go wide-eyed and some dropping their mics in shock. "When I first met young Midoriya, he was a small, scrawny kid who wanted nothing more than to be a hero. He asked me if he could be a hero because he thought he was quirkless, and I said no. All Might reached up and wiped a tear from his eyes because of the memory. I told him no because the job was too dangerous and it broke him, but later that day a villain I was chasing captured a kid and no one was trying to save him. Then I saw him out of all the civilians and heroes there only one person tried to help, and that was young Midoriya, a kid who thought himself quirkless, charged to the villain hoping to save his friend. When I saw that, I knew at that very moment I found a person to inherit my title or surpass me, so later after the incident I found him and asked him why did he run into there. And he simply said, because my legs moved on their own, so I offered to train him. I made him clean Tacoma Municipal Beach as his training, and during that training he found his quirk. As he was talking, the crowd was shocked and wide-eyed. Some were crying from everything they were hearing. And during that time he showed nothing but talent and a will to never give up. His quirk during the time activated, but it was too strong for him and he couldn't handle the power, and every time he used it, it broke his body. And yet he kept trying so he can be a hero and save people. Unlike some heroes, young Midoriya didn't want fame or fortune. All he wanted was to save people with a smile on his face. Because of that, I continued to train him and help him all I can, and he never ceased to amaze me," said All Might, looking at the crowd. "And after time I began to see him as the son I never had, so in a sense to all the people who are asking if he is. Yes, young Izuku is my son and he will surpass me and he will become the symbol of hope," said All Might, making some go even wider-eyed from hearing that. "I have one more thing to say. Young Izuku is now an official hero and now he is in charge of and the owner of my tower. Also to all you villains that are watching this," All Might then raised his hand and pointed it right at the camera. "Deku is coming for you and he will stop you." After he said that, he got off the mic and walked off stage. No one could move or say a single thing from what they heard until they were interrupted by screaming, "Yes! I knew it, Midoriya is All Might's child. He might not be his official child, but he is his regardless," screamed Todoroki before he grabbed his phone and started texting his father to tell him the news and to get another conspiracy board ready for Aizawa and a kid named Shinso. Everyone ran to Izuku and started to ask him questions on if that was true from what All Might said. But then they were interrupted when someone slammed his fist on the table, making everyone become quiet. They all turned and saw Katsuki standing there in pure rage. "Dekumi, and you need to talk now," growled Katsuki, walking away. Izuku stood up and followed him, knowing that he couldn't say no, but before he did he sent a message to Aizawa and All Might informing them. They both walked in complete silence to Training Ground Gamma, where Izuku sent another message to Aizawa and All Might. Plus Katsuki suddenly stopped and turned around with nothing but pure rage in his eyes. "Fight me, do." Izuku and Katsuki stood and stared at each other, and the tension was so thick it could be cut with a knife. "What? No, Kaken, I'm not going to fight you. I just got my license and I'd rather not lose it over your ego," said Izuku, making Katsuki grind his teeth in anger. "So what, you think you're better than me?" yelled Katsuki in rage. "What? No, I don't think I'm better than you, said Izuku before he was cut off by having to duck from a punch. "I'm tired of your If Deku, now fight me," yelled Katsuki, throwing explosions at Izuku. Izuku kept dodging, not wanting to strike back and get in trouble. "Kaken, stop, I don't want to fight you." "I don't give a ht," said Katsuki, throwing an explosive punch that hit Izuku and launched him down the road. "All you've ever done is look down on me, and I'm tired of it, and now All Might is openly supporting you. I'm supposed to number one, not you, and now I am going to remind you why you belong on the ground beneath me, said Katsuki, launching explosions behind him to rocket at Izuku. Izuku gritted his teeth in anger and got himself in a fighting stance, and once Katsuki was in striking range he launched his leg out. Izuku's foot smashed into Katsuki's face with so much force it almost knocked him out, but he stood up and glared at Izuku. "You were supposed to be 𝗵𝘃𝗄𝗄, you didn't, Deku," said Katsuki, standing up. "Kaken, stop, I don't want to fight you," said Izuku desperately. I told you I don't give HT, and now I'm going to remind you why you're so weak and should have taken my advice," said Katsuki, launching back at Izuku and tackling him to the ground because he was stunned on what he said. "Why don't you take a swan dive off the roof and hope for a better quirk in the next life?" Those words rang in Izuku's head. And all Izuku felt was anger. Years of suppressed hatred and sadness because of what happened to him were finally let out in this moment. Katsuki still had Izuku pinned, was beating him up, and was about to slug him with another explosive punch, when suddenly we decked in the face so hard it knocked a tooth out and flew over 200 feet. "Dash," said Katsuki before he was interrupted by a knee slamming into his face and breaking his nose. Izuku launched Black Whip at him and pulled him back and punched him in the chest before he used Black Whip and swung Katsuki into a building. Katsuki slowly stood up. "What the F?" said Katsuki before Izuku was right above him and tried to punch him. Katsuki was able to move fast enough and was glad he did because the punch destroyed the entire floor. "Get over here, Kaken," yelled Izuku, using Black Whip to pull him back and punch him into another building. Katsuki slammed into it and quickly used an explosion to get out of the way of Izuku's fist, which toppled the building. Katsuki was starting to feel scared because this wasn't Deku. No, this was nothing but pure suppressed rage. Deku F Cal dash. Katsuki was cut off by Izuku appearing in front of him and slamming his fist into his gut so hard he puked. "BLD. How does it feel, Kaken?" yelled Izuku, lifting him up and slamming him into the ground. "How does it feel to be a D?" Katsuki's eyes widened when he heard this and was brought back to past. Flashback. "How does it feel to be a Deku, you worthless B?" said a 9-year-old Katsuki, punching Izuku. "Just remember, Deku, you will amount to nothing, and I'll be sure to remind you every time," said Katsuki, who slammed his fist into his face, then stood up and started to walk away. Izuku laid there crying and looked up at him. "Kaken, what did I do wrong?" said Izuku with tears streaming down his face. Katsuki turned and glared at Izuku. "You were born." After he said that, he turned and left. Izuku heard that and it nearly broke him. "So this is what I deserve for merely existing," said Izuku, with all but a tiny flicker of light leaving his eyes. Flashback, and Katsuki launched an explosion that knocked Izuku back, but when the smoke cleared, a 6-year-old Izuku was standing there. "Why, Kaken?" Katsuki stood shocked and started to hyperventilate from seeing that. Izuku stood up and punched him, and Katsuki quickly gained his footing and lifted his arms back up to launch another explosion. But the 6-year-old Izuku was still there crying, but this time he was covered in cuts and bruises. "Why do I deserve this, Kaken?" Katsuki grabbed his head and tried to shake the vision and tears away. "You didn't answer my question, Kaken. How does it feel to be a Deku?" yelled Izuku while stomping to Katsuki. Izuku got to him and started punching and kicking him, and every time Katsuki tried to fight back, all he saw was that 6-year-old version of Izuku. Katsuki saw Izuku charging a big attack, so countered and launched another explosion at him, but then he saw something else. It was still the 6-year-old version of Izuku, but this time he was splattered on the ground. His dead eyes turned to him and he simply said, "I took your advice, Kaken, I hope you can forgive me." Katsuki froze and all he kept hearing, all your fault," over and over again. He started backing away in fear while shaking, but he was knocked out of his thoughts when a fist collided with his face and sent him to the ground. Izuku pinned him to the ground and kept punching him while screaming and crying. "I deserve this, I'm no hero. What kind of hero would do this to someone? I'm sorry, Izuku," thought Katsuki, feeling his face being beaten in and the ground below him breaking. Izuku lifted his bloody fist ready to punch Katsuki before he heard him talk. "I'm sorry." This made Izuku freeze when he saw tears streaming down Katsuki's face and his one good eye barely opening. "I'm sorry, Izuku, I'm sorry," said Katsuki, looking at the frozen form of Izuku above him. "I don't deserve your forgiveness. I deserve this. I won't fight back. Please take your anger out on me. I deserve it." Izuku heard this and started breathing heavily. Screamed Izuku, who launched his fist at Katsuki. "I deserve this for everything I've done," thought Katsuki, closing his eyes and waiting for the punch to hit him. But it never came. He slowly opened his eye and saw Izuku's fist right above his face, and Izuku was still crying. Why did you bully me so much? All I wanted was to be a hero and your friend." said Izuku with tears still going down his face and his fist shaking from rage and sadness. I thought you were always looking down on me, and for some stupid reason I thought I'd have to hurt you. I don't know what to say, but I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, and I'm sorry for telling you to kill yourself, said Katsuki, finally letting his walls down and was openly sobbing from guilt for everything he's ever done to Izuku. Izuku just took a deep breath in and he pushed his anger aside and let the breath out. I can't forgive you, said Izuku, making Katsuki close his eye in understanding. Yet I can't forgive you yet. When Izuku said that, Katsuki's eye widened and looked at Izuku in shock. But why, after everything I did to you, I don't deserve your forgiveness? Regardless, I deserve you to beat me till not even Recovery Girl can heal me, said Katsuki in disbelief, looking up at Izuku. Because it wasn't entirely your fault. Either I should have told your mom, I should have told my mom, I should have told the police, but I didn't. Because I wanted to see you become a hero, and for that I'm sorry as well, Kaken, said Izuku, and standing up and wiping the tears out of his eyes. Katsuki laid there in silence, looking up into the sky, thinking about everything that has happened, and couldn't help but chuckle. Izuku looked at him with a raised eyebrow. What? You're damn right, you should have. I needed this beaten into me years ago, said Katsuki with a chuckle. Izuku smiled before he reached his hand down to him. Kaken, I'd like to start over our friendship with you. Katsuki turned and looked at him wide-eyed. I don't deserve this, but if I'm going to be a better person, it starts with a first step, thought Katsuki as he reached his hand up and took Izuku's. Izuku lifted him up and pulled his arm over his shoulder to help hold him up and started to walk away. But after a minute of walking, they stopped when they saw All Might and Aizawa. You two don't need to say anything, we both heard and saw everything. And I mean, we heard everything, said Aizawa, turning his eyes to Katsuki, who didn't even flinch. Aizawa-sensei, whatever punishment Izuku will receive, give it to me. I was the one who started it, and I'm the one who will take the punishment, said Katsuki with a look that said he wouldn't accept anything but that. Aizawa stayed silent for a moment before he sighed. Very well, but I will be informing the principal. Normally I'd suggest expelling you, but after what I saw and heard at the end, I see you're on the road for redemption, said Aizawa before he walked over and grabbed Katsuki and put his arm over his shoulder. All Might help Izuku to Recovery Girl's office while I take Bakugo to Recovery Girl as well, and then to Nezu, said Aizawa, who walked away with Katsuki. After a couple minutes of both of them walking in silence, Aizawa decided to ask a question. Bakugo, what will you do now? Katsuki continued walking in silence for a minute before he spoke. I'll help Izuku become #1 no matter what, even if it costs me my life. Aizawa looked at him and couldn't help but smile. You'll be a great hero, Bakugo, and I'm sure Midoriya will help you as well. With that, they continued to walk in silence to Recovery Girl's office. Back with All Might and Izuku, they were following behind at a distance, having a conversation of their own. Young Izuku, normally I'd say what you two did was wrong, but I think it did both of you lots of good, said All Might with a small smile. Thanks, Dad, and yeah, I do feel better. Like a heavy weight has finally been lifted off my shoulders, said Izuku with a small smile. What the hell is wrong with you two? Yelled Recovery Girl while whacking both Izuku and Katsuki with her cane. Multiple broken bones, a severe concussion, missing teeth. As she kept yelling at them, with both of them flinching and trying to get away. So what the hell was it about that you two had to get this beat up, huh? Asked Recovery Girl, glaring at them. I got some sense knocked back in me and realized what I did was wrong, said Katsuki, making Recovery Girl's eyes soften. Sigh, normally I'd say that's not a excuse, but the look in your eyes, Bakugo, says it was necessary. So I won't go after you two anymore this time, but there better not be a next time, understood? Said Recovery Girl with a glare that made both of them flinch and nod their heads. With that, she sighed again and left the room to let Nezu know about the injuries they both received. I thought she was gonna chew us out more, said Izuku, chuckling. Yeah, I can agree with that, said Katsuki, smiling. Wow, you're smiling, man. I must have hit you too hard to make you smile like that, said Izuku, making a tick mark appear on Katsuki's head. What the F does that mean, Deku? yelled Katsuki but without the usual bite in his nickname. Hehe, I'm just saying you never smile like that, that's all, said Izuku raising his arms. I can smile whenever I want to, you just never see it, yelled Katsuki. Izuku just kept laughing while Katsuki kept screaming at him. Outside the room, Nezu, All Might, Aizawa, and Recovery Girl all stood out the door smiling. It seems they are getting along much better than they ever used to, said Nezu smiling. That's true, but what should we do as punishment for young Bakugo? He said he wants to take punishment for both of them, said All Might curiously. Aizawa, I'll leave that up to you, but I want Bakugo to attend weekly sessions with Hound Dog to help his anger, said Nezu looking at Aizawa. Also Yagi, I want you to contact Tsukachi and ask him to open an investigation on Aldra Junior High. It seems they were part of the reason why Bakugo was the way he used to be. Very well, I'll inform him in his punishment tomorrow, said Aizawa before he had a small smile. Let's leave them so they can reconnect. With that he turned and left. All right, I'll call him immediately, said All Might pulling out his phone and walking away. The others soon left and ignored Katsuki's continued screaming at Izuku with him just laughing. Izuku was sitting in All Might's office finishing up the paperwork, so he officially owns Might Tower. He leaned back and sighed and thought over everything that has happened in his life. It's been 3 days since me and Kaken fought and he's become a slightly nicer person, but he's still Kaken, thought Izuku with a chuckle. Young Izuku, you're almost done, you only have 7 more pages to fill out, said All Might going over the paperwork Izuku has done. All right, Dad, said Izuku going back at it. I'd also suggest you ask Principal Nezu for the day off tomorrow so you can go on your first official patrol, said All Might smiling. I'll be coming to Might Tower with you and will help oversee everything you do and correct any mistakes you make. Also Gran Torino will be patrolling with you to help you on the field till you get everything down. Right, I'll ask him once I'm done, said Izuku smiling. No need, it's already taken care of, and I wish you luck on your patrol, said Nezu appearing out of the vent before he closed it and disappeared. All Might and Izuku sat there in silence, not sure how to respond before All Might spoke. I want to ask how he does these things, but then I remember he's Nezu and even my MST are told me not to question it. Wait, your 𝗵𝗲 when Nezu was still principal, said Izuku very confused. Well, yes, he's been principal since before she even went there, said All Might shrugging. How old is he? Yelled Izuku confused. It's best you don't ask young Izuku or it will probably leave you brain dead trying to figure it out, said All Might. Izuku just entered 1A common room after a long day of doing paperwork and was excited to spend some time with his girlfriend. Hey Midoriya bro, check out who's here, said Kirishima pointing to the couches. Izuku looked over and saw that it was the PP cats and Koda was also there. He couldn't help but smile at seeing that, so he walked over and waved. Hey guys, how's it going? Said Izuku walking over and waving. Deku, said Koda excitedly as he ran up to him and gave a small shy smile. Izuku was about to greet him, but he noticed that Koda was wearing a hoodie that looked like his hero suit. Wow, Koda, where'd you get such a cool hoodie? Said Izuku smiling as he watched him get all flustered at that. Koda saw it at a store and just begged me to have it. He also has some action figures of you. Oh, he also said he had to get red shoes, said Mandalay, further embarrassing Koda. And Shino, yelled Koda, blushing and trying to deny it. It's okay Koda, I was the same way with All Might, said Izuku patting his head. Koda just looked away blushing but had a small smile on his face. Hey Dekun, we have some leftovers over here if you want some, said Ochako walking up to smiling. Thanks Uraraka-san, said Izuku as he walked over to the kitchen and grabbed some food before he sat down and started eating. Ochako went and sat next to him, and when no one was looking she gave him a quick kiss on the cheek, causing him to blush. Ochako, said Izuku quietly while looking around and blushing, someone might have seen that. Don't worry, I made sure no one saw, said Ochako smiling. Izuku simply sighed and went back to eating his food. A little while later Ida came over and started talking to him again. So Midoriya, are you excited for school tomorrow? Said Ida while hand chopping. Well, I'm not going to be going to school tomorrow, said Izuku scratching the back of his head. What, but 𝗵𝗃 school is very important. How could you not go to school? Yelled Iida, hand chopping even more. Well, I'm going to be going on my first patrol tomorrow as a hero, said Izuku, smiling at the thought that tomorrow will be his first official day as one. Oh, I'm so sorry 𝗵𝗃, I wish you luck on your first patrol, said Iida. Hehe, thanks Iida, said Izuku. Wow Midori, you're going on your first patrol, that's amazing, said Mina, walking up to him and smiling. Hehe, thanks Ishido-san, that means a lot, said Izuku, smiling. Wait, you're going on your first patrol? Said Kota, running up to Izuku with stars in his eyes. Izuku reached over and ruffled his head. Tomorrow I'll be out there, said Izuku. Kota couldn't help but smile as he looked up to him. I'll be rooting for you, Deku. The day continued, and eventually Kota and the Pussycats had to leave and go back home. Everyone was heading to their rooms when Izuku was stopped by a tug on his shirt. Izuku turned around and saw Ochako standing behind him. What's wrong, Ochako? She didn't say anything, instead she walked up to him and hugged him. Please be careful. Izuku smiled and hugged her back. I promise I'll be safe, Ochako, said Izuku. Ochako smiled and gave him a quick kiss before she went to her room. Izuku was wearing his hero costume and was walking through Might Tower with All Might and Gran Torino next to him. So Izuku, you excited? Said All Might, smiling. Yeah, I can't wait to see what happens today, said Izuku as he stretched his arms, getting them loose. Hehe, good, well. Here we are, my office. Well, your office now, said All Might, opening the door. When the door opened, Izuku saw a decent-sized room with a tall ceiling and some posters and paintings of different things, with most being American-themed posters. In the back of the room was All Might's desk with a dual monitor setup. Wow, it's just like some of those rare photos showed, said Izuku, looking around and smiling. Hehe, yeah, we haven't cleaned out my stuff yet, but after today it'll be clear so you can customize it to your tastes, said All Might, looking around. Alright Brat, are you ready, or do you want to stay in here and gape like a fish all day, said Gran Torino. What, oh, I'm ready, sorry it's just so much to take in, said Izuku, taking one last look around the room. I'm sure young Izuku and also here, said All Might, handing Izuku a earbud along with Gran Torino. I'm gonna be staying in here and monitoring your progress along with informing you of any nearby threats. Got it, ready Gran Torino, said Izuku, walking to the launch pad All Might always used. Hehe, yeah, but you owe me lunch, said Gran Torino, following him. Outside Might Tower were hundreds of fans and news crews waiting for the appearance of Deku. They were informed that today was going to be his official debut. They all heard the massive doors opening up near the top levels of the building, and they all looked up. Couple of seconds they saw Deku standing there with his arms on his hips and a massive smile on his face. Izuku turned and looked towards Gran Torino. Let's go grab Torino, said Izuku, who crouched down and launched off into the air. Hey youngsters, muttered Gran Torino, who blasted off following him. Izuku continued to rocket off through the city, bouncing off different buildings, as well as using Black Whip to launch himself at greater speeds or take tight sudden turns. Young Izuku, there's a police chase 2 blocks from you to your right, said All Might over the earbud. Got it, Dad, said Izuku, changing course and heading there, with Gran Torino staying back a ways to watch how he handles this. Meanwhile, the police are in a desperate chase, chasing down some bank robbers. Damn it, where the hell is the hero backup, said an officer, reloading his gun. I don't know, but they should be here soon, said the driver, swerving to the side so he doesn't hit a car. Just then they saw a green blur pass the car in the blink of an eye. The next thing that happened was the runaway car stopped dead in its tracks. The officers quickly pulled up and saw that Deku landed in front of the car and stopped it. The entire front end of the car was destroyed and the robbers were unconscious. Wow, thank you Deku, we probably would have lost him without your help. Ha, it's no problem, said Izuku, walking over to the car and ripping the doors off. He then reached in and pulled the thugs out of the car and handed them to the officers. While he was doing that, people were recording what he was doing. Alright, well, that ta dash, said Izuku before he was cut off by his earbud going off. Sorry officers, another emergency, I gotta go. After that he crouched down and launched off the ground heading to the emergency. In another part of the city, a building was on fire, and people were starting to panic. The firefighters and heroes present were doing their best, but there wasn't much they can do at the moment. Damn it, this fire is getting out of control and there are still people in there, said Backdraft, trying to get control of the fire. Where's my baby? Has anyone seen my baby? Yelled a mother frantically looking for her child. Just then Deku landed next to Backdraft. Backdraft, what's the situation? Said Izuku, looking at the burning building. A broken gas valve started this whole fire and it got out of control extremely fast. From what I've been told, there are about 10 people still in 𝐎𝐸𝐽. Backdraft was cut off when Izuku jumped to the building and dove through the window. Hello! Yelled Izuku, running through the building searching for people. Is anyone here? Help please, yelled a voice. Izuku immediately darted to the yell and smashed the door open. He looked up and saw a young teenager with what he assumed were his 2 younger siblings. Don't worry, you safe because I'm here now, said Izuku, trying to make them feel calmer. Okay, you 3 grab onto me, I'm gonna get us out of here. Izuku grabbed onto the and jumped off the balcony and landed on ground and letting them get off. He immediately turned around and jumped right back into the building. Izuku continued this for a slow 5 agonizing minutes. The heroes and police were trying desperately to put the fire out. Izuku dropped off one more person before he jumped back in, and as he was running he heard crying. It sounded like a baby and he ran as fast as he could. He busted the door down and dashed into the room. He heard the crying and saw a little baby no older than a couple months. He quickly grabbed it and was about to race out and leave the building when it collapsed on him. Outside the building, everyone was holding their breath waiting for Deku to come back when the building started crumbling. Everyone get back now, it's gonna fall, yelled an officer, pushing everyone back. They all watched in horror as it collapsed into nothing more than a massive pile of rubble. 𝗧𝗪𝗧 back at Ueaizawa decided to let his class watch Izuku's first debut, and he was regretting it immediately. They all watched in horror as the building collapsed and he didn't escape. Izuku! Yelled Ochako with tears in her eyes, watching it collapse and her boyfriend die. Mina went over and pulled her into a hug as Ochako started sobbing into her shoulder. Everyone just couldn't believe what they saw, Izuku's first day, and he died trying to save someone. 𝗧𝗪𝗧 in a rundown building. Shigaraki was cackling at seeing the person who put his MSTR/father figure away. Haha, take that DU, said Shigaraki, laughing like a maniac. 𝗧𝗪𝗧 back on the Midoriya residence, Inko had tears streaming down her face. Izuku, said Inko. 𝗧𝗪𝗧 at Might Tower. All Might fell out of his chair, not believe what he saw. Izuku, no. 𝗧𝗪𝗧 in Tartarus, in the deepest and most heavily secured part of the building, in a cell sat All For One. His head suddenly jerked up in shock and he ground his teeth in anger and sadness. But not at anyone but himself. Son, thought All For One, and if he had tear ducts he would be crying right now. Izuku, I'm sorry. In front of the building, everyone had their heads down to pay respect for the hero who just gave his life. But then they saw the part of the building start to shift and move. They all watched as it moved more. Then they heard a very faint voice. Detroit smash. The part of the building that was still moving was blasted open, and standing there was Izuku. He was covered in soot and had lots of different cuts all over his body. But in his chest was a small bundle of blankets that was unharmed. He started walking to the crowd while holding the baby. "Fu!" yelled the mother, running up to Izuku and taking the baby from his arms and gently holding it. "Oh, my baby. I thought I lost you." Izuku smiled at the sight and looked up at everyone and smiled before he started to walk away. "Wait, Deku, you should go to the ambulance so they can check your wounds at least," said an officer, running up to him. Izuku was about to decline when Gran Torino landed next to him. "I do it, kid. Last thing you want is to be sick as a dog." Izuku simply sighed and followed the officer to the ambulance. The paramedics immediately started cleaning his wounds. As Izuku sat there, he saw the mother walking up to him. Thank you for saving my baby. I don't know what I would have done if I lost her, said the mother while giving a bow to Izuku. Oh, it's all right, ma'am, it's what any hero would do, said Izuku, trying to hold in a yelp from the paramedic stitching his arm. Well, anyways, thank you, said the woman before she walked away. The day continued for Izuku, running around but not seeing as much crime except for 2 purse robberies and a hostage situation. All Might and Gran Torino highly praised him for what he did and told him he's well on his way to being a hero. Izuku just dropped off his a few minutes ago costume and opened the 1A common room when he was tackled. Plus, oh my Izuku, you're okay, I was so worried, said Ochako, hugging him. Ochako, I'm okay, I promise, said Izuku, hugging her back. They both stood there holding each other before they heard someone clear their throat. So, you two a couple now, said Mina with a big SHT eating grin.